Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever it is, wherever you at. How you doing? This is Coach Renz. Welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I am your host today. As with every day, I am your host anytime we're on. Uh, so this afternoon, we're going to carry forward with the similar conversation that we was having yesterday. Uh, I had some chirping in yesterday. I was hoping to get some more of these people today, because basically this is the bedrock. This is the bedrock of Christianity. Without this, it doesn't work. I know that the Christians will always say that it is the resurrection, the death and the resurrection that is the bedrock of the foundation of their religion, but in truth, it is not. The bedrock of their religion is the fact that the Old Testament has to be true. And that's what we'll talk about today. We talked about everything else under the sun other than the subject matter yesterday, when we spoke with callers, with people who got on. And hopefully we can have that conversation today. I don't have TikTok up yet because I am loading up the videos that I've made earlier today. First, I want to thank everyone who supports the channel. We have many supporters who are members, people who give super chats, gifts, jewels, all that sort of thing, all the little different ways of supporting the channels on the different platforms. I want to thank everybody who does that. Much, much, much appreciated. All right, so now we can load up the tickety talk. Yes, I do one-on-one calls. So if somebody wants to come on the show, I do open the doors for guests to be able to come on the show. I just don't do multiple people. I won't have like 2, 3, 4 people on here because it's too much arguing, too many people trying to talk over each other, all that kind of stuff. It's not part of what I like, so I don't do it that way. Getting TikTok up. Let's see if we can get this conversation rolling here. All right. So we got the TikTok up. I do have a meeting Friday, and hopefully Friday next week I'll be on a new platform that'll allow for Facebook, TikTok, YouTube all to be on the same thing. You all see the same comments and so on and so forth. So I did challenge a few people who was on Facebook. They were like, oh, they were challenging the subject matter, but yet they were afraid to come live. So I sent out a request for them to come live today. Oh, I meant like personal coaching type calls. I love to call in, but you're always on when I'm running tasks, small business owner here. Oh, yes. So if you're speaking about my coaching program, so I do have my coaching program where I work with people one-on-one through various different things, whether it's business or personal life coaching, going through their deconstructions. And so in order to do that, just contact me at masteringyu@10@gmail.com. I put the email in the comments so that if you want to contact me about any of my coaching programs, you'll have an opportunity to do so there. And that is one of the reasons why I took a little bit of a break, is because of the coaching clients that I had, plus another business opportunity. I just didn't have time to go live. Some of the things have gotten into more of a scheduled format, so I can go live from time to time. Can't promise every day, can't promise every week, can't promise a schedule, but it'll be as it is. When I can go live on a day, Monday through Friday, I will. And yeah, I pretty much schedule. That's pretty much schedule. So just like yesterday, we're going to continue this conversation. And we're going to go through some of these. Let's talk about some of them, because I know that going through our deconstructing process, These are some of the key things that causes a person to start questioning the Bible, question some of the things that are said, so that and let me know. I know I turned this fan on because it's a little warm in here. I don't know if it's interfering with any of the sound, so let me know if it's too much interference. I'm not going to turn it down though, but I just want to know. But this is a very good question. Would it be a better place? Would the world be a better place if everyone was atheist? I'm going to have to answer that question with a resounding yes. I think that the world would be a better place if everyone was atheist. Now, I know the Christian argument or the religious argument would be, then where would our standard of morality come from if the world was atheist? Well, just as you have countries that are incredibly secular, where they're like 60, 70, 80%, 90% secular, they seem to have a better work-life balance. They seem to have a better quality of life. They have better education. They have better healthcare. We can see that countries that are more secular do not have many of the issues of countries that try to push religion. America tries to push religion, but incarcerates more of its own citizens than anyone else, has a higher murder rate, has a higher robbery rate. America has higher crime rates than other places. And then we're fighting other places that are also very religious oriented. So when the last time you seen Sweden attacking somebody? You haven't, right? You don't see that. So it's just a simple matter of, without religion, then humanity takes over, and it becomes more or less, I don't want certain things to happen to me, so I'm not going to do it to them, right? So no, I think that a world without God would be a much better place, because now we are responsible for our own thoughts. We have to be accountable for our own thoughts. You see, as long as you can blame a God, then you can get away with all types of atrocities. I mean, just look at the Bible in itself. As you see up on the thing, one of the things I talked about that did it really happen is Joshua's conquest. People don't really realize how much Joshua's conquest is still affecting the world today. Hey, boss lady, how you doing? The fact that Joshua was commanded to go into Jericho, go to Ai, to go to all these different cities and genocide all the people. And when one group, the Danites, could not genocide all the people in the land that they were given, they were told to make them into slaves. And then for the nations that was near the places that they genocided, they were told by this God to make those people into slaves. Look at the world today. People are getting behind us attacking Iran because of their belief in God. People in Iran, and not and when I say people, I'm not talking about all the people, but you got people in Iran, regimes in Iran that wants to destroy other people because of their religion. As much as you got Christian crusaders, you got Islamic jihadists, and as much as you got both of them, you got Abrahamic genocides going on in Israel. You got Jewish genocide. People are genociding the Palestinians, taking their land. I just posted a video while I was getting this together of a nun being attacked in Israel. She didn't do nothing to that man. She just ran up and attacked her. Why? Because this is what their religion says. This is what their religion said. I got a guy over on TikTok. He's saying, okay, I'll play. Locust found in Egypt matches scriptural history. If I didn't know you was joking, I would think that you're crazy. Just because you find some locusts in Egypt doesn't mean that this plague happened. And as far as the chariots found at the bottom of the Red Sea, those chariots, no chariots have been found. that was a bullshit statement made by a nurse who acclaimed himself to be a archaeologist, and none of his stuff has ever been peer reviewed. None of his things have been found. Matter of fact, he claimed to have found those chariots at the bottom of the Red Sea, but the scuba gear that he was utilizing, he would not have been able to get to the bottom of the Red Sea. So just his equipment alone doesn't work. What is that guy's name? What is the guy's name? He's made all these religious claims, and none of them have ever been proven to be true. I forgot his name. Ricky Davis says that, and see, this is some of the bullshit teachings. Palestinians never had their never had their own land there. Wait a minute. Palestinians never had their own land. They are nomads. You should know that. No, sir. No, sir. If you were to actually look at archaeological history, then what you will see is that in around from 1300s, 1500s BCE, you see that there were Canaanite people there. Those Canaanite people, of course, they were under the rulership of the Egyptians at that time frame. Then after the Egyptians and the Bronze Age collapsed, they established themselves individually, but then they were conquered by the Assyrians, and then it was conquered by the Babylonians, and then and mind you, the Babylonians, these are Persian people. These are, Middle Eastern people. Then after the Babylonians, they were conquered by the Persians. Then after the Persians, the Greeks. And after the Greeks, the Romans. And then after the Romans, you had variations between the Ottomans and the Christians, the Arabs and the Christians. So to claim that Canaanites were nomadic people, this is not actually true. It is the nomadic people who walked away from the Canaanites who will become Israelites. So the Israelites were the ones who was actually nomadic people who used to be Canaanite people. But there has always been a presence of a people there who have went through multiple conquerings. And in those multiple conquerings, of course, their bloodlines get mixed with the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, and so on and so forth. So what we do know is that the more Caucasian people who claim to be Israelites there are definitely not the real Israelites, but the brown-skinned people who may have a lot of mixtures of Arab and Babylonian and all these others bloodlines, they are the actual people who's been in that land. They've just been oppressed by multiple empires over all that time frame. So no, sir. All right, I got Meta Trash. You there? Let me make sure I got the volume up. Oh, my bad. I didn't have the volume up.
I was just, I heard that, and like looking up some history about this from apologetics and things, that many scholars used to believe that Adam and Eve were actually black skinned. Have you heard this?
Yeah, I've heard that.
They ultimately decided they couldn't be because you can't take a rib from a black man.
That's a good one. Where'd you get that one from? Oh, he walked away. That's a good one. Here's the thing. It's hard to insult me. So if some of you were insulted by that joke, don't be. Yeah, that's the kind of joke that I might tell myself. It is the type of joke that we do tell, that black people will tell amongst each other. I'm gonna probably tell that one. I don't know if my wife is on here yet, but if she isn't, she's gonna get told that joke. She's gonna get told that joke today. But anyway. Oh man, that was good. Everybody needs a little laughter. Now what you have, so what I was saying about the Palestinians and the Israelites and so on and so forth. So what you have is a whole bunch of Europeans who adopted the religion of Judaism, and they may find some lineage I mean, we do have the fact that during the time frame of the Roman Empire, and let's just start there. We don't even need to go back to the Greeks or the Babylonians or any other time frame. Just the time frame of the Romans. Uh, Many Jewish people live in different parts of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire encompassed North Africa, right? All from Morocco to Egypt. It went through the Middle East. It went all the way around the Anatolia Peninsula into Greece and all throughout Europe. And here's the thing about the Roman Empire. You could go to cities like Rome back then, and you would find people of great diversity. So it would not be unreasonable. And we know historically that there were large groups of people from the Levant who had migrated to cities like Alexandria, and more importantly, to cities like Rome and all throughout the European part of the Roman Empire. So for a Caucasian to trace their roots back to the Levant is not implausible, but a lot of non-Levantian Europeans adopted the religion. And just the mere adopting of the religion is what makes you Jewish, right? Now, the Jewish people adhere to the gifts of this so-called God through their Torah. Their Torah promises them the land from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to the Euphrates, as far north as parts of Turkey and as far south as parts of Egypt along the banks of the Nile. So their God has promised them all this land. Now, the people who never left that land, but just went through conquering after conquering after conquering, went through the Arab conquering, went through the Crusades, those people are some of your modern day Palestinians who converted over to Islam for the most part. And they have just as much birthright to that land as anyone else. So, no, to say that the Canaanites were nomadic is just a blatant lie. It's not true at all. And, I'm not, if it's something that is true, I'll accept it. But if it's not, it ain't. And that's just not true. That's just not true at all. And this is more apt. Canaanites were around back then, and Israel stole their storm deity, God Yahweh, and this is true. Well, I'm going to say stole. So Yahweh was part of the pantheon. He was like a lesser god. And then the Canaanites who separated themselves and would call themselves Israelites adopted Yahweh as their primary god, then they gave him all the attributes of Baal, being a storm deity, a larger storm deity. And then in around the 700s to 600s BCE, they then merged him with El. And then by the 500s, they got rid of his wife Asherah, because El has a wife named Asherah. So they adopted this god, promoted this god, but they were the nomadic ones, and the Canaanites were already there. But that's how most religion, we talked about that yesterday, how every religion that is around today spurned off of some other religion. It did. The only religion that is a truly original religion right now is the belief in the spaghetti monster on Saturn. Or any other god that anybody else has made up recently. That would be the only real religions. All right, we got Levantian. Is he there? Nope. Sometimes people hit it accidentally. Oh, let me put the link in here on Facebook and YouTube. I don't know if I did that yet. Yeah, let me put that in there. All hell pasta ghoul. Exactly. So you don't believe in God, just the question, which God? There are literally 4,200 different gods that people are worshiping today. So there is no one who owns the title God. So which God are you referring to? I mean, the answer is going to be no, but just curious as to which God are you referring to? Are you referring to Allah? Are you talking about Brahma, Krishna, Oshun, Ogun, Quetzalcoatl, Ahura Mazda? Which God? See, that's the arrogance of people. And I'm not saying that that gentleman is arrogant, but it's a mentality that has gone throughout every religion. Uh, they think that their God is the God. So when they say you don't believe in God, they're only talking about their God. But which God are you talking about? You know, everybody got a God. All these people got different gods. And then in Christianity, really is like which version of God? The Seventh-day Adventist version, the Mormon version, the Jehovah Witness version, the Protestant version, the AME version, the Methodist version. Because even though they all claim that they are joined together by the death and resurrection, how you get to that heaven, how you be accounted in that book of life, it's all a different pathway. All a different pathway. And hell, the idea of a monotheistic God didn't even appear to the Abrahamic religions until they learned it from the Zoroastrians. They literally learned it from the Zoroastrians about an all good God and an all bad devil. They adopted that over a 200-year time frame after the Persians freed them from the Babylonians. And then all of a sudden, oh, our God has always been the one supreme God. No, he wasn't. That's why he was fighting Baal in Baal's temple. That's why he lost the battle. His angels lost the battle against the prince of the Persians, the god Shamash. How does disagreement negate the existence of God? Who said that disagreement negates the existence of God? Are y'all freezing on Facebook and YouTube? Because I got an independent Wi-Fi that should not have any problems. But disagreement about whether or not a God exists does not negate whether or not the God exists. It is the evidence that you can present that your God exists. It's what you implied. Instead of going by what I imply, go by exactly what I say. I never said that disagreement between it invalidates a God. Disagreement between different Christian denominations of Christianity, which denotes different variations of the thought process of what they believe is the same God. So that's what I said. They all claim that they believe in the same God, but they all got different processes and pathways to get to that God. So which creates a different variations of the God. So it is not me saying disagreement invalidates the God. I'm a very straightforward person. So if just ask the question, I'll give you a straight answer. I don't try to imply this or that. I'm just going to tell you straight up. And what the funny part is, and somebody just said no, but they bought the Pope. All these variations of Christianity today, for the most part, like 99% of them, is a variation of the Catholic version of God. It is always some type of split that creates a new version of the Christian God. Martin Luther created a new version of the Catholic version of God, by posting his thesis using the Gutenberg press and sending all his information out. Calvin created his version of this God. Like, think about it. The Calvinistic version of God says that everything is predetermined. Everyone's life is predetermined. Well, the Catholic version and the rest of the Protestant version doesn't say that, doesn't teach that. Catholics don't teach about that Jesus is going to come down and scoop everybody up. That's a different Jesus who doesn't come down and scoop everybody up. Do you okay? Whatever, I can't see the name. Do you listen? No, it doesn't. They disagree on certain aspects of worship. Isn't that what I said? They disagree on certain processes, pathways to heaven, to the book of life. I don't think you got, I think you got hearing problems or comprehension issues. Or you're one of those persons who just got to disagree to the point where you got to find disagreement even in the parts that you do agree with, because we are in agreement that they have different. They've changed the aspects of this God by having different pathways to this God, different actions by this God, different teachings by this God. We're saying the same damn thing, but you got to argue. You can't be in agreement. So, and this is stupid. I swear, they don't. He reminds me of Ed Crunch Me on Facebook. I got to argue with you just because you don't believe it, so I got to argue with you. Martin Luther never intended to found a new church. Did I say that he intended to find a new church? I did not. You talk about things you don't know nothing about. I never said he intended to find a new church. But a new variation of God was established. A new pathway of worship was established by the writings of Martin Luther, which created all these Protestant denominations. And then within the Protestant denominations, later on, they start having their own disagreements as well. Never did I say that Martin Luther's intentions were to start a new church. Matter of fact, I agree with you. Martin Luther wanted to reform the church, but he saw that he could not reform the church. And so everything spurned off to create the Protestant movement. Hey, Thomas, you said they did rewind the tape. I swear, some of these Christians are so hell-bent on their anger towards anybody who disagrees with they bullshit that they don't listen. And you know good and goddamn well you can't rewind the tape on no damn TikTok live. So even just to say that just shows that you're not truly being authentic in your statements. Hey, funny. Hey, people funny. Country Warrior.
Country, yeah, hi.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm the right age. I'm in Washington State. I agree with you. I started rereading my book last night as a response to all these TikToks I've been on. It's called The Bible Unearthed.
Uh-huh.
And it's by two Jewish Israeli archaeologists. And what do they say? No record of the Jews building pyramids. No record of them leaving Egypt en masse.
Mm-hmm.
The walls of Jericho are still there. Now, I'm not saying you got everything in there that appears to be miraculous is wrong. There's an excellent documentary also called, it's by James Cameron, and it goes through different types of things. Like there was a lake in Uganda in 1974. They went through the whole thing, like in the plagues, and then a blanket of carbon dioxide came off it, and everybody next to the lake died in their sleep. I mean, so, everything in the Bible is wrong, but they don't want to yield on any point. And they won't even let me, for example, one of the advantages of being Catholic, I tried to tell this to somebody the other night. The only things you have to believe in the Bible is what's actually in the Apostles' Creed. So I don't care about Methuselah. Nobody ever obligated me to believe Methuselah. In fact, I don't believe Mary got something assumed into heaven. I didn't believe last time. Then I became an atheist. Now I'm not an atheist. But what they want is power. And the book is true. And now they all their beliefs and their prejudices. And now they think you should obey. And in fact, I don't even like when they say Christ is king. Christ can be your king. We don't have a king. And I'm not saying anything like Jesus is actually way closer to the truth than all these preachers, because he emphasized the interpersonal relationship based on your capacity to be more like a child and have a real feeling function thing with people, like conscience, treating people the way you want to be treated. But if you don't even know how you're treating other people, you'll never know how bad you really are.
No, you don't. And there are a few. Now, there's one thing I know. I got a question for you, but before I ask that question, you said that in this book they said the walls of Jericho are still there. Just to add context to that, somewhere around 1500 to 1600 BCE, the walls of Jericho were torn down. We don't know why, but they were torn down. Could have been an earthquake, could have been battle. We don't know. But during the time frame that Joshua would have come to Jericho, the walls had already been down for a couple of 100 years. Then they were rebuilt around 1000 BCE. And those are the walls that we currently see in and around Jericho, even though those walls came down with it. Huh?
You're really well informed.
Yeah.
I have to stumble across this information. I just wanted to tell you what they say. But the point is still, in fact, fourth wave that was done, I felt that St. Paul had messed up the church because whatever it was Jesus didn't like about the Sanhedrin, he had reinstituted in his authoritarian church.
Mm-hmm.
I still believe that.
Now,
I believe that's the main weakness.
So you believe in Jesus?
I believe in his message, yes. And I believe anybody who gets that message right is a messenger of a higher power, yes. Whether Jesus is literally the Son of God or not, I mean, people had riots over this stuff in the what do you call it, the split between the Eastern Orthodox and the Romans, and they actually beat each other up in the streets. It's nuts. But, they were afraid if I get it wrong, then God's going to send a plague down and make us all be punished. Like, you're not being tested morally on your belief structure. It's on your behavior. That's the most important thing.
Okay, but what do you think Jesus' message was?
It's about it's to do unto others as you have them do unto you, and
Jesus didn't teach
become
that.
like a child again.
Wait a minute.
Become
Wait.
like a child again.
Hold on. Hold on.
One more. And he said, "I bring not peace but a sword,"
Mm-hmm.
which confused me as a fourth grader because it didn't sound like what Jesus was about. But when you actually learn to appreciate your soul and what comes from within your soul, you do not have that kind of total obedience and blind faith and authority that the Romans and the Sanhedrin demanded of Jesus, or that the Pope and King John, at the time of Magna Carta, demanded of the Englishman.
Okay, so here's the problem. Here's my issue with the way with what you expressed, except for the second one. The first one and the third one are more modernized retakes on what Jesus. If Jesus was a person who was walking around in Judea at the time frame, is a modernized take on what he would have actually meant in first century, because he was not teaching that you to do unto others that you should have them do unto you. That's not a message of Jesus. He was only speaking to the Israelites that you should love. When the word neighbor, the Jewish word for the Hebrew word for neighbor in first century only meant your fellow Israelites. It did not include anyone outside of that, which is why he called that Canaanite woman a dog.
We also told the story of the Good Samaritan. But in any case, see, I'm not concerned with that. I completely pointed that out.
Mm-hmm.
But the main still thing is conscience. And when you ask why is slavery evil, it's because you deny the soul of another man and make him worship you as a god, making him do whatever you command. And that's not one of your powers. You're not a god, and he's not subservient to you that way. This is really at the heart of murder, slavery, or 100 other sins.
Well, first century, and he had no problems with slavery whatsoever. Jesus never denounced slavery. He never denounced the.
First of all, he didn't keep notes on himself, then, did he?
I mean, but I'm just saying, like, so two things. One, you can find you put it on Jesus, but the messaging or the lessons that you are taking on you can garner them from almost every religion that's out there. You can get that from Buddhism, Taoism, you can get it from Ifa, you can get that message from pretty much any religion, which is a good thing that you can. Of course, they all corrupted by other sayings that disregard that teaching as well. And then the shit. Hell, I forgot the other point that I was going to make. It's all right.
Listen, it was a continuous meditation for more than 1,000 years, which brought about this understanding finally about slavery from the Spanish priests in the Caribbean, the Quakers in England, and even in the medieval times in France. But it requires a refined sensibility.
No, it doesn't. No.
It doesn't matter to me.
Do you know what really ended slavery? It wasn't Christian philosophy or Islamic philosophy, because, they ended slavery as well. In North Africa, they ended their form of slavery. It was industrialization that ended slavery. every agricultural empire around the world had slavery because an agricultural empire requires slavery in order for it to sustain itself. It was the industrialization of the different parts of the world that brought about a sense of, okay, now it's economically not useful to have slaves because of industrialization. And so then people philosophize that and then use their religion to back it up. But
well, yeah, but that's not why we had the Civil War. That argument, I mean, your argument has its validity, but the reason we had a Civil War was because the Quaker-based people were opposed to this, and they're based on their own experiences in Quaker meeting, which I used to go to.
no, I'm with you. I used to go to, I didn't go to Quaker meetings, but I used to train a Quaker. And even though, yes, Quakers were against slavery, it's still, the Civil War was fought over the argument of a state coming in, having the choice of being a slave state or a free state, over the argument of voting, the amounts of votes that you can acquire. Because if you owned a slave, then the slave owners wanted this vote of their slaves. So you had your 3/4 agreement that came about, and the taxation of slaves as property. Those were the main reasons the Civil War happened, because the South wanted to keep their slaves, and the North, who had industrialized, were like, nah, we don't need slavery. So they had a moral justification for it after industrialization. That's the reason.
The North bought slavery way before it got industrialized.
No, it was the big.
Also, Pennsylvania, we banned slavery way in the beginning. I'm sorry, we did ban slavery way before there was any kind of meaningful industrialization. Okay.
No, I wouldn't. When did? Hold on.
Okay. I remember. I'm 74 years old. You're asking me to remember stuff, but let me. I'm curious about you. You're very wise, and I don't disagree with you 100% on anything. What do you do? What's your life about? What did you spend your time doing that you acquired all this good knowledge?
Hold on. So, I mean, I had questions about the Bible from a very young age. And so I just committed myself to studying it. At first, I wanted to be like Martin Luther and reform the church because I thought the church was teaching it incorrectly. And then, but the more and more I studied, the more and more I realized that the Bible was just a culturally based book for people at that time frame and had absolutely nothing to do with me and was historically and archaeologically incorrect.
Can I say something?
Uh-huh.
So I had a Protestant mother and a Catholic father. So when at Christmas time, they would say, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. But the Catholic Church says, peace on earth to men of goodwill. So December 67, my Latin PhD in classics Latin teacher brings in the Greek, and we look at it, and the correct translation is peace on earth to men of goodwill. Now, when I bring that up with Protestants, they can't even admit to that degree of error. And this, it means you're worshiping the book. I had a guy on a Friday morning, we were working together, we had nothing to do, so he brings out the Bible, says everything in the Bible is true, nothing in the Bible contradicts. I mean, that is complete nonsense. Nothing. First of all, you can't verify everything. Secondly, we can verify that some of the things do contradict each other.
Right.
They're worshiping a book instead of looking for their souls. And they want what they do is they get rid of the Pope. Martin Luther got rid of the Pope, and made the Bible, or his interpretation of the Bible, is the Pope. That's who the Pope is. Their interpretation of the Bible is now the Pope.
I can see that, but let me clarify something for you. So Pennsylvania outlawed slavery in March of 1780. Okay. Even though there were minor movements, the first full industrialization of America began in 1790. So there's only a decade in between. So industrialization, it was right on the heels of when we identify industrialization. Of course, there's always a lead up to any movement, and then historians pick a date when they will say that, okay, it's enough to say this is the time frame for it. So I hear what you're saying as far as Pennsylvania is concerned, and with the Quakers, because the Quakers were running Pennsylvania for the most part, so they may have had a more of a civil mentality towards slavery. And then the industrialization of America just made it even more prominent. But the Civil War in itself is because of industrialization, not so much because of the Quakers.
Okay, I gotta go do stuff.
Yeah, but I get what I understand what you're saying, though.
You're a very intelligent man. There are very few like you on TikTok. Where, like the other day, I said, even when I try to explain. I used to teach English as a second language in Italy for 9 years, and I got to talk to like people who are professors, scientists, because I have a science background, and economics. You can't tell these people anything. And if you disagree with them at all, they'll kick you out, or they'll tell me they don't want a history lesson.
Yeah.
And what we did now was exchange history lessons, because you cannot come to these judgments meaningfully and a good analysis without a review of the history that created the situation. It's just the way it is.
Exactly. If you can't review what created the situation, then you can't really speak on the situation. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. And
you know what a country warrior is?
A country no.
Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, 1968.
Yeah, I've never seen.
You're too young. So, there's these warriors. They do everything backwards. They walk backwards when they want to go forward, etc. They throw dirt at themselves and clean themselves. They say goodbye when they mean hello. And I was so amazed at this movie, which I saw when I was 21, a couple of years after it came out. And everywhere I go, like I'll go to a meeting about, I have a personal trainer certificate. I have to take like a nutrition course. The woman will say, oh, a Fedra killed the Baltimore Orioles pitcher who was wearing 2 sweatsuits, didn't drink any water for 2 days, and worked out in 100-degree heat and took some ephedrine. And I'm like, you can't say the ephedrine killed it. And these are PhDs. I have to go up against PhDs. When I was in medical school for 2 years, the people say, why is Pauline wrong? I read his book. He's completely right.
Mm-hmm.
You can't believe how many establishment people are prey to abject lies because it furthers their authority or something. I asked Dr. Brandt, head of pediatrics at Jefferson, what's the matter with the vitamin C and this? He's not a physician and it's an acid. I'm like, okay. A year later, 2 years later, I'm reading the book. It works. It works. And they don't want to admit it.
No.
And this is some feature of human nature I am very surprised about, because I thought when I was a kid, adults basically yielded to strong evidence, but they don't.
No, people yield to the sheep mentality of, I'm going to follow what's popular because that way I feel safe.
Yes.
And that's just what people do.
Doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, guy. All right, I'm obviously you're getting someday.
I appreciate it.
Good job. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
have a good one.
You too.
Feel young. I see if Sonny is still there. Sonny. Hello, Sonny. Sonny or Cher? Sonny or Cher? Which one? I guess Sonny is not there anymore. So let's go to the next person. If I can hit the right button. KOTOR. And I guess KOTOR must have hit it by accident. Okay. That was a decent conversation. You know, just a little correction here and there, but good conversation. Good conversation. I don't see how people can still wait a minute. See, this is what I'm saying. Aaron Washington said, y'all kill me over this. The Civil War was fought over separation of the South from the North, separation of the country. Why did the country separate? It's just like my man Warrior said. You have to identify the why of something in order to be able to state something. Yes, the country separated. Then you have to ask the question, why did the country separate? And then you get into the 3/5 compromise. You get into the taxation. You get into the voting. You get into whether or not a state can come in as a free state or a slave state. You read the Confederate Constitution. The Confederate Constitution specifically says we are separating and fighting this war to maintain our stance on slavery. You know, those Confederate lovers, they love to try to fade that to the left or to the right. Y'all kill me. And here's the thing. What made me, as he called me intelligent, I wouldn't call myself that. unless I'm just being a smart ass. But a homeless man in the library in Marietta, Georgia, taught me how to do research. And that's just, you need to learn how to do research. Learn how to research some stuff before you come and make your little statements. And that's the thing. Oh, you are there. What's your name? Dang. I guess Dang is not here. I guess that was an accident. It is very easy. Oh, let me thank everybody who's given gifts and super chats and memberships, because I've seen some gifts on TikTok. Thank you for the gifts. Appreciate the support to the channel. I always want to make sure I thank people for doing that, because you don't have to, and I don't ask for it. But yeah, learn how to do some research. And the first thing that you need to learn how to do is how to ask proper questions in order to get a more fulfilling answer to a question, right? Like if you just ask, how did God of the Bible create? And then you just read that and they, the research shows that the Bible, the world was created by God. No, you got to ask the proper question. In the case of a God, you have to ask the question, what are the different philosophical processes that the world was created? And you'll probably get multiple variations of how the world was created according to different philosophical point of views from different religions. So you want to ask quality questions in order to get a quality answer. You sent me a video on objective truth. Check it out. How did you, on TikTok? Lo, did you send it on TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube? I know I didn't check it out yesterday. I know I haven't checked it out today. I can tell you that. I did this live right up until right before my wife came home, and then I didn't do shit else after that, as far as pertaining to social media. It was about quality time with my bride after that. TikTok Messenger. Okay, no, I didn't look at it, but I'll check it out. Make sure you look at the 2 videos that I posted as this live is being done. I posted 2 videos today. Make sure you check those out, share them, comment on them. If you're not a subscriber, which 80-90% of the people who watches my channels are not subscribers, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. That's the only thing I've asked for. Hit the subscribe button, make comments, like them or hate them. That's all I ask for. But the financial gifts that people give, I would greatly appreciate it, and thank you very much. Thank you very much. So back to the conversation. I understand the y'all. Okay, yes. I know that I make grammatical errors when I'm typing sometimes, but we got to do better, people. I understand the y'all, the whether they separated, bro. I'm not being funny. That's exactly what Aaron and the AA run wrote. I understand the y'all, the whether they separated, bro. I understand the why they all separate. I don't know how you put the weather in. I don't know what you mean by that. But if you understand the why of the separation of the North and the South, then you wouldn't just proclaim that the Civil War began because of the separation of the North and the South. You would say it separated because of the issues between the North and the South that caused the separation. That's just like my man Warrior. He was talking about it, he was dealing in medicine and pediatrics, and as a personal trainer and taking nutrition classes and so on and so forth. In our medical systems today, we deal with the symptoms of an issue 90% of the time instead of dealing with the cause of a situation. One of the things I loved about being a personal trainer is that I dealt with the causation, not the symptoms. You come to me and you got high blood pressure, you got diabetes. Well, the causation of it is your eating habits and being overweight. Let's fix that. And if we fix that, more than likely, we're going to fix your hypertension. We're going to fix your high blood pressure, heart issues, diabetes, all that. So when we look at this Bible, what we see is that people are looking at the symptom. Jesus and the modernization of the Jesus message is symptomatic. You got to go back to the cause of Jesus, right? You got to go back to the cause. The cause of the Jesus movement could only happen if these things are true. If these things aren't true, then Jesus, the symptomatic Jesus, is not true either. I'm not talking about Civil War anymore, Aaron. You say you understand the underlying reasons of the separation, then you should have said it. All right. You should have said that instead of trying to say something against what I said. So you don't. You're just trying to backtrack and make yourself feel better. I don't go for that kind of bullshit. I'm a straight shooter. Ain't got time for bullshit. For that backpedaling. So if Joshua didn't conquest all of the Levant as he claimed, then the story of Jesus can't be true. Because if Joshua didn't do that, you can't have your story of Boaz and Ruth. Because without Boaz and Ruth, you don't get the line of David. Without the line of David, you don't get the kingdom of Israel. Well, let me not say that. Well, I'm gonna say that. I can say that you don't get the kingdom of Israel, but you don't get the line of David. Not from that tracks back all the way to Abraham and back into Adam. You don't get that. You might get a guy who claim it, a warlord named David who claimed that he go back to them, but you don't get it. You don't get the true aspects of it. You just get a bunch of lies. Kind of like how at the end of the show yesterday, the guy was talking about Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie just claimed that he was part of Menelik's bloodline. He ain't provide no proof. Anybody can claim to be somebody's bloodline. So there could have been a warlord named David who claimed that his generations go back to Abraham and then to Noah and to Seth and then to Adam and Eve. But that don't make it true. And then if it's not true, then there's no grand thing about Jesus coming from the line of David, by which the Jesus character does not come from the line of David. If Joseph's sperm was not part of it, Jesus does not come from the line of David. Nope. And if a Levitical priest girl named Mary was marrying a dude named Joseph, I even call into question the Joseph lineage, that motherfucker was a Levitical priest line and not a Davidic line. That he comes from the line of Aaron and not the line of Moses. Nope. And a whole bunch of nopes. So Jesus is just a symptom of I'm creating stories in order to garner up some type of authority. But I really don't have that authority. I'm creating it. And like Warrior was talking about, people are sheep. I mean, I'm the one who said that they were sheep, but people are sheep. People give their authority to someone and they roll with it. They're good. Instead of actually doing the research, actually calling things into question. And it's hard to call things into question. Because when you're standing alone on that island calling something into question, they want to send a tsunami of lies, threats, all kinds of, sometimes death, in order to shut you down on that island. Yes. Rupert. So TikTok and I read these for the TikTok people. Rupert over on Facebook said, only someone from the line of David can sit on the throne of David. Him, Haile Selassie, sat on the throne of David. The throne of David is in Jerusalem, would be in Jerusalem. When did Haile Selassie sit on the throne of David in Jerusalem? And then according to the Messiah text, the Messiah, or the Messiah ideas from the Old Testament, this Messiah not only would sit on the throne of David, but then his generations after that would continuously sit on the throne of David. He would also usher in the Levitical priesthood, and they would have enough sacrifices for generations. When did Haile Selassie do any of that? You see what I'm saying? Haile Selassie makes a claim, but then he doesn't fulfill the claim. He never sat on the throne in Jerusalem. He never brought the Levitical priests back. He never incorporated sacrifices back. When Haile Selassie didn't do shit. Not a damn thing. Jesus from the line of David through Joseph, John 1:45. I ain't even got to go to John 1:45 to read whatever the hell it says, because John is written so much later. You look at his lineage from the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke, and you see that Joseph, yes, they track him back to David. But here's the thing. Did Joseph's bone Mary? Did he skeet up into Mary? Because if Joseph didn't skeet up into Mary, Jesus ain't from the line of Joseph. When did Joseph skeet up into Mary? And for shits and giggles, let's go over here to this John 1:45. What did he say? John or First John? What did he say? What did he say? What did he say? Now he just said John. John 1. This should be fun. 45. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Yeah, that proclaims him as in the line, because he's saying that he's Joseph's son. So you're saying that Joseph skeet? Okay, so he said Joseph surely skeeted. All right. So then he was not born from a virgin. Because Matthew said he was born from a virgin. How could Joseph skeet up in there if Matthew was saying he was born from a virgin? So that would be a contradiction in the Bible. Rupert, I'm going to completely ignore your idiotic statements about, because you're just proclaiming shit about your dude, and you cannot prove anything. He doesn't fulfill the Messiah template as laid by the Old Testament, that the Messiah would sit on this throne, and the fact that Haile Selassie never sat on the throne in Jerusalem already disqualified him right off the bat. So maybe you need to reconsider. But Joseph never skeeted. If Joseph skeeted into Mary, then Matthew is lying when he said that Mary was a virgin, which it demonstrates that Matthew was reading from the Septuagint, and the Greeks had translated the word Alma into, what is it, Parthenos, which means virgin to them, when actually Alma just means young woman, and it has nothing to do with virgin. If the Hebrew wanted Isaiah to say virgin, then they would have used the word Bethula, which actually does mean virgin, but they use Alma, which just means a young woman. So, and it wasn't even a prophecy about Jesus. That was a prophecy about a child being born. That was a prophecy for the king Hazaz, that he would defeat his enemies by the time that child can choose between good and evil. It's not foreshadowing or anything of the sort. It is a direct prophecy for that time frame during the reign of King Hazaz. Has nothing to do with Jesus. But D Worthy, if Joseph skeeted up in there, then Matthew lying about her being a virgin, even though Matthew made a huge mistake in the first place. He should not have used the word virgin. He just said a young woman. And then Joseph skeeting in her wouldn't have been a problem. But see, this is why I say that most of Christianity, most of the teachings and belief in Christianity actually derive from the teachings of the Roman Catholic, or what became the Roman Catholic Church. The whole virgin birth thing, Roman Catholic Church. but Protestants still believe it. Most of Christendom still believes that. So Jesus' teachings were about consciousness and looking within. The Bible has nothing to do with consciousness and looking within. Where do you get your teachings of Jesus? Because unless you're looking, I mean, if you're looking, you have to be looking at books that were not acceptable to the canonization of what we call the Bible in order for you to say the Bible has nothing to do with the consciousness and looking within. You may be talking about the application of it, but if you're saying the Bible has nothing to do with it, then where do you get your Jesus teachings from? And you may very well get them from the Gospel of Thomas, which is more inward looking than outward looking, but it's still problematic. Or your secret reading writings of Peter or John and all them other dudes. But where are you getting it from, sir? But his teachings were not about consciousness. His teachings were about for the Jewish people in their application of Jewish laws. Shit, I can't see your name now. Arise? What? Say your name for me. What's your name?
It's Oris.
Oris. I have. Okay. I was looking for my reading guys.
Oris, like you're saying Oris.
Okay.
Oris.
Oris. Okay. All right.
Yes.
So, what do you think about the conversation today, Oris?
Well, it depends because I'm not actually a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't really believe in the whole Christianity thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I do believe in the Torah and about creation and Adam and all that. It really works. But on the Jesus part, no.
Okay, so how does the Torah work?
Torah is basically, about normal life. How you live your life. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How is the Tower of Babel about how you live your normal life?
Well, every person knows somewhere within that there is a good and there is an evil,
Okay.
So
subjectively we do.
As people, we have the right to choose.
Right, but we only know that subjectively.
Basically, yes.
Like you may call something good, and I may say it's that same thing as evil. Is that true? You may say something is good, and I may say something is evil. Could that be true?
Well, it depends on the situation.
No, it doesn't depend on the situation. I may say something is good, and you may say something is evil.
Okay, let's look at this.
No, okay. Wait. No, we don't have
people. Okay.
Is it plausible that you may? Okay, I may say a war is good. You may say the war is evil, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's subjective.
That's exactly what I'm trying to explain.
Yeah. So saying that people automatically have a sense of good and evil is all subjective, and it's really not a true statement.
Sorry, come again.
So your statement about people automatically.
I didn't really get what you said.
So your statement about people have an innate idea of what's good and what's bad, what's good and what's evil, is not necessarily a true statement, since all of it is subjective.
Well, subjective, But let's okay. I think my use of the word people is quite wrong. Since you say you can know something is good and I could call it evil.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring it to a single person perspective.
Okay.
A single person perspective. So I, as a person, based on my own, my own environmental factors and all that, to me, I could know that something is good, basically, right? So, now, since I know that that thing for me is good
For you.
yeah,
Well, just for you.
I have like a duty. Huh?
Well, you only know that that thing is
You
good. You only know that that thing is good from your perspective. So you have a duty to what? Push that on other people?
Exactly.
So what is your duty? To push it on other people?
I have a duty to uphold, like to make sure that that thing which is good for me
Mm-hmm.
should always be done, right?
Okay.
So now Torah helps you as a person to uphold these things. Like we all know from commandments and all that, you know?
Wait, so hold on.
So as a person, yeah.
So Joshua conquering Jericho, is that something, and his whole conquest of Israel, according to the Torah, is that a good thing for him to uphold?
Well, like it is written in the Bible, like we all read it, and like I said, from his perspective, it was good for him to do.
Okay. But does that make it good?
Like I said, from his perspective, I can't judge him. I don't really know his own perspective. I don't know what was surrounding his own situation.
But you earlier said that the Torah is used for us to know what is good, right?
Yes.
So Joshua genociding the Canaanite people is good.
Okay.
But as far as the Canaanite people are concerned, it's not so good. It's evil.
Basically, on their parts, it's evil.
Right. So how can this be? So the Torah can't be for people, all people. It's just for people who believe it.
Exactly.
But it's not a way of life that we should
just
follow.
Wait, it's just like what you just said. It's for the people that
the people that what?
Like every book that believe it, like you said. The Torah is for people that believe it. Just like every book and every other religion is good for the people that believe it. You agree with me on that, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think that it's still good for the people who believe it because they are committing evil acts because of it. What I determined to be evil acts because of it.
You said?
Like, I don't think that people should be following the Torah because of it causes them to commit what I have determined are evil acts. Like genociding people is an evil act.
Okay. You know, I'm not really a fan of Christianity, but I did.
I'm not talking about Christianity. We're talking about the Torah.
No, I'm trying to make a point.
Okay.
Like you talking about Joshua's genocide in the Canaanites, yeah?
Yeah.
But then we do come around some history parts where Christianity had to, force itself on people by some sorts of how's it called? It still had to do violence, to make people actually get to that stage of holding it in I'm not really getting the word.
Right. They were following the Torah, though. When Christians genocided or conquered other people and forced them into their religion, they're pretty much just following what the Torah taught.
The Torah or the Christianity book.
Well, the Torah teaches the same thing.
And every other book, every other holy book still teaches that same thing.
No, not every holy book.
Okay.
The Buddhist books, the Tao and Buddhism, they don't teach that.
Okay.
So every book doesn't teach that. Your Abrahamic books are the primary books that teach that type of mentality. Zoroastrianism doesn't teach that. You either born into Zoroastrianism or that's it. You can't be grafted in. So they don't teach that as either.
So what's your point? Because I'm trying to understand where you're getting at.
Well, my point is you made the statement that the Torah is a way of life. It teaches us how we should live. And if we should live based on the Torah, then we should genocide people. We should kill babies. We should keep young women who have not known a man and make them into our sex slave wives. We should stone witches and wizards and homosexuals and women who get married and they're not virgins. We should stone them to death. So if we were following the Torah, we would be doing all these things.
In your opinion, what would you actually say the Torah is?
The Torah is a created history for a people trying to establish themselves. And it's based on the culture of that day. Well, the cultures, because it's written over a span of about 1,000 years.
So you as a person, what do you believe?
I don't believe anything. I only go by what I can observe, what I can prove, what can be tested, what can be repeated and demonstrate the same or similar results.
So basically, you're not spiritual at all.
Not in the sense that not in the sense that you would say spiritual. I do have a humanitarian spirituality. So like I am probably the most considerate person you would ever meet in your life. I consider my actions and how they may affect other people, even when the people don't even know that that's what I'm doing. Something as simple as driving down the street, I will give consideration to every other driver, regardless if they give me consideration at all.
And now, if we go back to what I stated at first, I said that Torah is technically like not Torah, just every human being knows these things, just like you. You know, you're going down the road with your car and you're driving, you considering every other driver, whether they consider you or not, that's something you know, something you feel that you must do, right?
That's something, but everybody else doesn't do that. Very few people do that.
Huh?
Very few people do that.
Yeah.
You know what? I can give you a perfect example of something that happened. Wait a minute, hold on. I can give you a perfect example of something that happened this past Saturday that irritated the shit out of me. So me and my wife was at this cigar event, and this guy was walking through the grass, and he tripped over this little manhole cover, which it was a hole right there. He tripped over it, walked by it, and then didn't go back and cover it up. Now, this is now a hazard for anybody walking down there. I sit there and I wanted to go fix it, but I told my wife, I said, we're going to see how many people just walk by this, look at it, see that it's a trip hazard, and not do a damn thing. And at least about 5 or 6 people walked by it and didn't recover that thing up until about the 7th person. No, it wasn't even the 7th person. One of the waitresses who worked there, she covered it up. But everybody else was willing to allow somebody to walk through this grass. You can't even see the damn hole that well because it started getting dark. And somebody would have broke their ankle or whatever tripping into that damn hole. That's how inconsiderate other people are. Now, if me and my wife wasn't testing this out to observe it, as soon as I saw the guy was going to ignore it, normally I would have went over there and covered it up. But that people are not considerate at all. That is not a natural thing for people to do. People are selfish as hell. So,
well, I get your point. I get your point, and I see what I see. I'm trying to understand your kind of person, and it's good. That thing you do, it's good.
and that's my spirituality.
Having this consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you having this consciousness about my actions. My actions can actually either make other people good or make them even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. But so back to the Torah though. So the Torah,
Okay.
you're saying that everybody should live by the Torah?
The Torah was not actually forced on anyone except for the people who the Bible actually said it was meant for, and anyone who joins themselves to it. You can read it in the Bible. They're supposed to be somewhere in Deuteronomy or so. You read it. It says it doesn't really force anyone to it.
Yeah, yes, it does. It tells you, it says that the foreigners who sojourn with you, that they are to live under your laws as well.
Yeah, that's what I said. Anyone who joins themselves to the people who it was meant for, they all become one Lord for them all.
No, they're still considered foreigners.
It doesn't really force.
It does force. It does force, because those people still remain to be foreigners, and it's just saying that those foreigners are subject to these laws, and they have separate laws for the foreigners than they have for the Israelites. Like the foreigners can become your slave for life, but the Israelites themselves cannot become slaves for life except for specific circumstances. But the foreigners are not given the same. Go ahead.
From your own experiences in life, you have seen that these things that like you're trying to avoid, they kind of happen in other places. This like the slave thing you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like it happens every other place.
Yeah.
Like people from their own place find it hard to enslave their own brothers, but the strangers in their midst, they just like make them slaves and all that forever. It happens like with other people.
Now it depends on, you have to pinpoint the different people, because as quickly as you can say, well, these people had a hard time slaving their own people, I can point out a group of people who had no problems enslaving their own people. Romans had no problems enslaving their own people.
Well, they had no problem doing it. You can say the Egyptians too.
Egyptians had no problems. They didn't have any problems enslaving their own people.
But when you go deeper, it still goes back to the foreigners. The foreigners are the main target, so they make their own people like the bait. Yeah.
It's relative.
They just free their own people after all that.
It's relative.
Yeah?
No, they didn't free their own people after that. It's relative. So like the Aztecs would enslave their own people, but when it came to sacrificing to their god, after a while they decided we shouldn't sacrifice our own people. We should sacrifice some other people. Now, certain special people in our group we will sacrifice. But as far as enslaving, the Aztecs enslaved their own people just as quickly as they enslaved the foreigners, and they didn't set the foreigners free. I mean, they didn't set their own people free after they started enslaving foreigners. You as a slave was a slave.
That's quite true, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really a fan of most histories and all that, but the thing is, but like the Torah and all that, before anyone can actually like say the Torah whether actually happened or not, we kind of like have our own personal battles, like the one you're going through there. This personal awakening, like personal consciousness. When you can really understand that and like encompass the whole thing, you're beginning to get the whole thing, and you begin to understand why Torah actually exists, or why any law actually exists, because Torah technically just means laws.
Okay, what you just said doesn't make any sense to me, because
Okay.
You're saying that once, as I go through my awakening, which I am very much awake, so I'm not going through an awakening. What I saw is that the Torah is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of historical claims that people are making, and none of those historical claims actually happened. So why should I accept this? Why should I accept the law? Why should I accept the law of the Torah when the events of the Torah never happened?
Well, no one can actually, especially you and me. I'm not actually saying the Torah happened. I was not there like 5,000 years ago. No, I was not there.
You don't have to be there to find out whether it happened or not. That's a lame excuse to say that you have to be there in order to know it happened.
Okay, let's go back like our own distant, just early years back. You know, like our grandfathers. My dad can actually tell me a story about his grandfather. Well, I was not there. I heard the story from him. I can't actually really judge whether the stories were actually true. I am not able to make a complete sense.
That's a lame excuse right there. Because if the question was, did your grandfather purchase? Where do you live? Where are you from?
I'm Nigerian.
Okay, so if your father claims that your grandfather purchased 10 apartment buildings in Lagos, and your father's just telling you this story, you can very much go and look at the records to see if your grandfather actually purchased 10 buildings in Lagos. Can you not?
Okay, let's look at it.
Can you do that?
Let's look at it.
Now, not let's look at. Can you do that?
You can do that, yeah.
All right, so your statement is untrue that you can't go back and look to verify whether or not the story is true or not. Right?
Okay.
And we do that with the archaeology of verifying whether or not the Moses and his exodus ever happened, if Joseph's conquest ever happened, Joseph in Egypt ever happened. I mean, Joshua's conquest. But we look at the archaeology to see whether or not these things could have actually happened. And what we see is that it's an impossibility for those things to have happened.
Okay. An impossibility for those things to ever happen. But what about our personal lives? Okay.
What's that got to do with it?
Even if those things never happened, still in those stories, there's supposedly a message, something they actually passed on, something they wanted us to know, even if those things are actually make-up stories.
What will
you make of that?
What I make of that is that it is a horrible lesson to pass on. In Nigeria right now, you got Christians and Muslims killing each other because they believe that their religion in the past has dictated that. And so they're killing each other up in that northeastern part of Nigeria. I forgot the name of the states, but they're killing each other over this belief in this book, in those two books that stem from the same God, that both believe in the Old Testament. And so because of things like Joshua's conquest, the Muslims in Nigeria think that it's okay to go in there and kill the Christians, and the Christians think it's okay to kill the Muslims. So that's why we don't need the stories at all, because that's what the story is teaching. Now, I understand you want to just gravitate towards the more nicer laws, like don't murder each other, don't steal from each other.
I did not say that. I did not say that.
Okay, so then you're okay with all the genociding then?
I'm not okay with anybody killing anybody, because the Torah actually says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Actually, it says, "Thou shalt not murder." It doesn't say, "Thou shalt not kill." There's a difference between killing and murdering. But but then it goes off in
English brings all the whole confusion.
When you go and genocide people. So Joshua was wrong for killing the Canaanites.
I can't say that I wasn't there with him.
Yes, you can. Don't do that bullshit, man. Shoot straight. if you're going to say that you shall not kill, then Joshua then is wrong for killing the Canaanites.
Well, when you say Joshua was wrong for killing the Canaanites, you could also say that God, who sent down hailstones and coals of fire from heaven upon the Sodomites and the Gomorrah people, yeah? Like, he was, like, murdering all those people, yeah?
Yes, he was. He was murdering people. What does the 3-year-old in Sodom and Gomorrah have to do with anything? Yeah, he's murdering people. He's a murderer.
Huh?
Yeah, God is a murderer.
Okay. What did the people actually do? What did the people actually do to deserve that?
They didn't do anything to deserve it, because deserving means justice. And so the crime that was committed to this God, so-called to this God in Sodom, and not Gomorrah at all, just Sodom, was that they had an issue with the way that the angels supposedly came into the village. Because if you understand the cultural mentality back then, when you enter into a town, you are to present yourself to the most powerful people in that town. When you don't, then it is a sign of disrespect. So they wanted to come and embarrass those angels who came into the town. And so this guy said, oh, they don't know how to treat people right, so I'm going to kill them. That is not justice, to kill people just because they think that you didn't come into their town right. That's not justification for murder. So he unjustly then murdered these people. And Gomorrah, it doesn't say anything about what the people in Gomorrah did. He just killed them just because they're close nearby.
That's quite funny. But if we actually base our facts on these things, like I said, we were not there. We didn't know. And like you and I, who are actually in the present, in our present,
my guy,
we can actually look at these things around us and fix it.
My guy, stop with the we were not there bullshit. Because if you're going to use the we were not there, then you should not uphold anything from it. You should take the 10 commandments and be like, well, I wasn't there, so I don't know if those 10 commandments said that. So therefore, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal. I ain't got to listen to that because I wasn't there. Right? Do you do that with that?
Then I just walk into any store and take.
No, answer the question.
Walk into any store,
go to my
neighbor's place, take what it is.
That is not what I was asking you. What I was asking you, if you're going to use the stance of I wasn't there when it comes to the murdering of the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, then you have to also take that same stance on I wasn't there for the 10 commandments, so I don't have to listen to that either. I can't say that that's something we should follow. You see what I'm saying? You're picking and choosing what you want to I wasn't there for.
Wait. How does that sound to you? Like, someone tells you a story, and you were not there. You heard the story.
Yeah.
And now the person is like, yeah, this thing is here. You can do this. Laws, they keep you balanced, okay? Torah is like a law.
Love.
The stories are different. The stories are stories.
Yeah, I don't think you are comprehending anything that I'm saying, because you obfuscate into a whole different subject matter. You are not answering the question of picking and choosing which I wasn't there you're going to follow. Yes, laws are there so that we can have civilization. That is the only reason we have laws, is because we have civilization. If you lived on this planet by your damn self, there is no law. You don't need law because you're here by yourself. But the moment you are with
laws,
if you're by yourself, you don't need laws. But in order to have civilization, you have to have laws. So that is the only purpose of a law, so that you can have civilization. That's it. But you weren't there for the 10 commandments. So how do you know that those were the 10 commandments that was written?
How do I know that that were the 10 commandments that was written?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't there
Right.
when they were given. Yeah.
So what? Yeah. So why do you follow
But
them?
now, you said you like you said, the laws are things that are needed for what is it called? Civilization.
Uh-huh.
They help you go through this life, live with your people, with people around you, right?
Right. So the
So
the laws
I
are
don't
just for
need
you and the people you live
to be
around.
there.
You what? You don't.
Yeah. So I don't need to be there when they gave them, because it is right in front of me now. So I can live now
Okay.
with the people
So
around me.
so you cool with slavery then?
Well, there will not be needed for slavery. And slavery.
Who says who?
Look.
Wait. No.
Get me.
Who says that there's not a need for
Get
slavery?
me.
Because I could use a good slave.
Well, it depends on what you actually call slavery.
The slavery of the Bible is chattel slavery. I own you for life, and I can pass you down as property to my son. I could use some of that. I might think that that's great. I could use some of that good slavery.
And what about slavery in our own modern days?
What is slavery in our modern days?
I'm asking you, because it's not like as if slavery is actually gone from our modern days.
So slavery in our modern days, which I and let me be clear, I abhor slavery of any form. But slavery in our modern days is basically when you take away the agency of a person to choose. So whether it is the sex slave trade or it's physical chattel slavery, those having a job is not slavery. But when you take away someone's ability to choose and determine their life, that's slavery. And we do have some of that still happening today. Thankfully, it's infinitely small compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, these things don't actually stop. They're a result of.
But you're avoiding my question. You should be okay with slavery because that was part of the law.
No one is actually okay with slavery.
But the Bible is, but the Torah is.
Yeah.
And you say you live by the Torah.
Wait. The Torah is to keep you. Wait. Like, okay, let's look at this. Like a man now, like say a farmer. He has his fields, a large, vast field. Get me? I see what you're doing.
I know where you're going, but go ahead.
A vast field.
Yes.
Huh?
Go ahead.
He has a vast field.
Mm-hmm.
He alone, he's not gonna work all those things. He's gonna need workers. And some of those workers, in their own ways, from their own circumstances, can pledge themselves like, yeah, let me serve you. I want to actually do this for you, like, continually. I don't have nowhere to go. What do you call that?
A job.
He practically works for that man.
A job.
Pledges himself to him.
A job.
Yeah.
That's not slavery. And that's not the slavery of the Bible. That's not what the Bible says as far as slavery. In Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, it says that from the foreigners, you may buy your male and female slaves, own them as property, and pass them down to your sons. That's not someone saying, I want to come work for you.
Okay. Like I said, we were not there.
Oh, now we go.
We are here.
You know what?
In the now.
My guy.
In the now.
My guy. We're good. You surpassed your time frame that I usually talk to somebody, and you're regurgitating the same bullshit that you were saying earlier. Now you're going back to the we were not there.
Okay.
So, and if you were not there, then don't follow none of the laws. If you were not there, you shouldn't believe none of it or follow any of it if you were not there and you're just picking and choosing. But I appreciate you coming on the show today. I'm gonna let somebody else get on. So you have a great one.
Thank you, bro.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very considerate, but I hate repetition. Repetition gets on my last nerve. John.
What's up, Sean?
What's your name is John. What's your last name? John. I think John's having a conversation with somebody else.
Yes, sir. It's the same shit, bro.
We ear hustling. John. I think John accidentally did that. I started ear hustle, but his name on there was John Neofin. I went to high school with a guy named Johnny Neofi. I was just wondering if that was Johnny Neofi. If that was Johnny Neofi, that would have been funny, but that doesn't sound anything like Johnny Neofi. So, damn. I was hoping that was Johnny Neofi. But I think he was just at work and accidentally hit it. Yeah, I'm only going to give so much time to repetitive, nonsensical talking. If you can't backtrack on, oh, we weren't there, so we can't say nothing about the slavery, but then you weren't there for the damn 10 commandments either. But you're going to follow those. Come on. You got to do better than that. You got to do better than that. That's bullshit. And then you're going to, oh, I believe in the Torah, but you don't believe in slavery? That don't make sense. We didn't even get to stoning your daughter if she's not a virgin. But that's you see how what people do and what people have always done, and they will continue to do it. They will continue to modernize the ideals of their book in order to hold on to it and try to explain it away. One of the lamest ones is the "we wasn't there" mentality. We wasn't there. You wasn't there for none of this shit, the good or the bad. But yet you still believe it. But you want to cherry pick which parts. I'm sorry, I didn't see a lot of the comments that you guys were making, especially on TikTok, because it was right up here by my face, and without reading glasses, I can't see shit up close. There's no evidence to support the existence of Abraham. That is absolutely correct. No real evidence of many characters in the Old Testament. Yeah, the overwhelming majority of characters in the Old Testament, there's no evidence of them. You don't have any evidence of anybody, I think, until you get to like maybe a house of David. And that's not to suggest it's the same David of the Bible, but actually Hezekiah is pretty much your first person that you can say actually existed in history. But that doesn't mean the 180,000 of the Syrian military was destroyed by an angel. It doesn't mean that. And you're absolutely, of course I can't read. Is that Balinese writing or Thai writing? I don't know. What language is that? I'm curious. What language is your name written in? I know it's Southwest Asian, I think. But anyway, he said there's no real direct archaeological or textual proof like inscriptions, artifacts, or Egyptian records of Moses was a real person. Exactly. There's zilch of Moses being a real person. None. Not one shred of evidence that Moses existed, that approximately 2 million Israelites left Egypt. There's no proof of that. And there probably never will be any proof of it. I want to know what language his name is in, though. King James wrote it. Trying to read some of y'all comments, trying to catch up. some comments I will definitely ignore. Let's see, what did I miss over here on TikTok? Did I miss any comments? Either make sense or don't exactly. Yeah, Orize, I don't know what the hell he was talking about. Well, I know what he was talking about. I mean, but that's the delusion of any religion, is that you're believing on it, but you're trying to make it fit into your modern world today, your modern thought process. And it just doesn't. Like, it literally doesn't. There's absolutely nothing about any of the old religions that fits into your modern day worldview in totality. You might be able to grab pieces here and there. Is it good not to murder people? It's good. Is it good not to steal from people? It's good. Most people will agree that that's good. There are going to be some people who disagree with that. That's why it's all subjective. But at the end of the day, the overwhelming information in these religions is not compatible with how we live our lives today. Right? So the fact that people are still holding on to it instead of just going with, this is why when the person asked earlier, would the world be better if it was all atheists? Yes, it would be. I will repeat that. Oh, and thank you for the gifts and the stars and all that stuff and super chats. It would be a much better world, because you wouldn't have people, like, literally, if you was in Saudi Arabia and you was walking around with a Bible, you can get stoned. That's messed up. That is completely messed up. You still got countries that are circumcising women, little girls. That's messed up. You got what the guy Osare was Orize in Nigeria. You got that northeastern province of Nigeria where people are killing each other because of a religion. Not over resources, not over land, not over some other type of dispute. Religion. Israelis are killing Palestinians over religion. I wonder, this has always killed me. This guy's a Mason. Yes, I am, and proud of it. But what does that mean? Oh, that I'm part of the secret cabal? You anti-Masonic people kill me because you don't know shit about Masonry. I'll tell you this, the ethos of Masonry is making good men better. These guys, oh, he's a Mason. I go for all the conspiracy theories. I went to Mount Shasta and I saw the big door open and close. It's aliens up in Mount Shasta. I love the conspiracy theory people. Conspiracy theory people are like religious people. I don't have any evidence. I just heard some stuff, and I'm gonna follow that. And I got some circumstantial stuff, but I'm just gonna follow this. Mainly because I can't get my life together. I can't get my life together, so I'm gonna follow the conspiracy theories, because that's the reason why I can't get my life together. That's the reason why I shit the bed every day. Because I can't get my life together. Yes, the Gnostics do say that Jesus didn't have anything to do with Yahweh, because Yahweh is Yaldabaoth, the demiurge. So Yaldabaoth was like the evil god that created the matter universe, and Jesus was supposed to come down and teach everybody that through knowledge you can ascend out of the sphere of Yaldabaoth. Look at this. Assume as you may. I mean, assume as you may. But I am convinced your issue with Christianity is deeper than what you reveal as proof. I think the pastor boned your wife, hence your hatred. But hey, that's just my assumption. Yes, and you're making an ass of yourself with your assumptions that there's a deeper hidden meaning of why I don't like Christianity, because that's the only way that you can make it work in your mind, is that a person couldn't just simply study their way out of the religion. I know that there are people who go through religious trauma, and I don't want to make light of people who go through issues. Like, I know of a guy whose wife was boning the pastor, and that was very traumatic for him, for his wife, for their children, for that's why that church is empty as hell right now. That big ass building they got is empty because the church split over that situation. So I imagine a lot of those people have religious trauma. I'm not gonna talk bad, I don't want to make light of religious trauma. It does happen. But even with religious trauma, it's just the beginning of why people leave the religion. Most people who encounter religious trauma just skip from one church to another church, or skip from one religion to another religion. To truly just walk away from the religion requires you to study, requires you to come to an understanding of these ancient myths, and then make a critically thought decision to walk away from it. What I have said is why I left the church is exactly why. I have no reason. If it was through religious trauma, hell, I would promote the shit out of that. Because I could probably use a combination of religious trauma plus critical thinking. Hell, it'll probably make my channel even bigger, because more people will, it will be me empathizing, or is that sympathizing? I don't know which one it is, empathy or sympathy. Empathy is when you just feel for someone. Sympathy is when you share experience. So sympathizing, that would make me more sympathetic to people, and people would be like, oh, he knows exactly what I'm going through. Like, I know it's hard because a lot of you go through the situation where your family disowns you and kicks you out and all that sort of thing. I can't sympathize with that. I can empathize with it, but my family never did that. But if they did, I probably have more followers, because I would have a connection, another connection with people. So if that had happened to me, sir, I tell it. I tell it. Tell it like a champ. Oh, y'all can't laugh in here. I see. Man, see, this is why I hate text. Let me put this up so y'all can see it. See, now I feel like that Jim was just being sarcastic and shit, making a joke. And I went through that whole goddamn diatribe. This is why I like talking to people more than reading text. This is for my own gratification. My guy, what language is your name? If you posted it already, I didn't see it. Oh, and he said he was just making, see, that's why I don't like these damn texts sometimes. There are some people's comments that I don't respond to because I can't tell whether they're serious or not. So I just let it go. Pray for ourselves other than the love we. Oh, I like this statement. There is no greater love, there's no greater power that we can create for ourselves than the love we create ourselves for our individual self and others. Very good statement. You are absolutely right. Because you can't love someone else unless you love yourself. Lowe said that it took a traumatic experience with religious folk to wake me up. And oftentimes it does. When people, the Christian methodology is to say, oh, you got church hurt, and that was just the people, that wasn't God. You need to get with a better church, a God-fearing church, a God-teaching church. And people who walk with God, so that you won't have that experience, and then you can reaffirm your faith in that God, instead of realizing that when a person goes through some traumatic thing with church folks, it often causes them to start studying. Okay, that was some bullshit. Let me read this Bible for myself. And then you start to realize, oh, even though I experienced that trauma, I experienced it because these motherfuckers been teaching the wrong thing. They've been teaching some bullshit. They've been pulling the wool over my eyes. And then you start studying more and studying more and more. And then you start realizing this whole thing is a bunch of bullshit. Just like all this shit in the Torah is a bunch of bullshit. This guy decided in the Tower of Babel that he wanted to destroy everybody because they spoke the same language and they built this tower and their pride. Well, I haven't experienced it here in San Antonio, but I damn sure experienced it when I, living in Atlanta. I seen people who didn't speak the same language build towers that were way bigger than the Tower of Babel. God didn't strike that down. Plus, the Tower of Babel never existed as far as the story is concerned. That is not how languages develop. We can actually look at language and see how languages develop over time. So we know that there wasn't once one language that was spoken around the entire world. We know that that never happened. And we know that people didn't migrate out of the Levant and fill up the planet. We know that never happened. So the Tower of Babel story is another story that was stolen from the Babylonians. Okay, you saw the manipulation. Lo said he saw the manipulation that they was trying to use against him in his own religion. When he saw that manipulation, he had to walk away from that religion. Who y'all? Are y'all fighting in here? Listen. People in here talking about some come at me. Who y'all trying to fight? Little feet next to Bigfoot. What the? Okay, I'm lost in some of y'all's conversation. Prove history you may visit in Africa. I don't know what you mean by that. But all of these stories can't get anybody up here who we had one person. I might clip that and repost it with Orize. Oh, I see. I figured. So Brother Littlefoot and Jim Cab, y'all having y'all own conversation over there. That's fine. Ignore me. It's all right. I'm not gonna feel any kind of way. But yes, and this in the Tower of Babel story. Let us go down and confuse the language. It's remnant of, so in the Babylonian, I think it's in the Babylonian story. Yes, because they use Marduk. Marduk is ruling over Babylon. He builds a tower that is supposedly a communications tower. So he can, because Marduk is fighting against Enlil. Enlil with his generals say, hey, we got to destroy that tower so that we can disrupt their communications. From that, we get the Tower of Babel story from the Hebrews. Now, Babylon means gateway of the gods. But then they had a similar word that means confusion, Babel, in Hebrew, and that means confusion. And so they took that Babylonian story and made it into the Tower of Babel story. And plus, you got to think about this. The Tower of Babel story happens about 100 years after the flood. In 100 years, Noah and his children, they ain't built no damn city big enough that they ain't built the city that size by then. It's just a bunch of bullshit. No, high classified. That story is not from the Sumerian text. That story is from the Babylonian text, which, the Babylonian text, the Sumerian text have a lot of similarities as well. So you'll find similar stories in the Babylonian text that are very similar to the Sumerian stories as well, which is a natural thing since that's how the conquering went. It went, the Sumerians with the Arcadians, and then the Arcadians conquered, and they conquered that region, and then the the Egyptians, and then the Assyrians, and there was some flipping and flopping, and then down to the Babylonians. But it's somewhere up in there, you have some Proto-Babylonians as well. It's like a whole bunch of mixture of when people were conquering and controlling these lands, but all these people were in communication with each other, shared stories, shared ideas. They just changed certain names. Enlil is more dominant with the Assyrians and the Arcadians, and then Marduk becomes dominant. And most of the time, the domination of a deity was based on who that king ascribed to. Like, Marduk becomes the big dude because of not Nebuchadnezzar. I think it's Nebuchadnezzar's father, Nebuchadnezzar or somebody like that. Whoever was before Nebuchadnezzar, that dude was like, I love Marduk. And so now Marduk becomes a big dude. So imagine how we are now in America. If we got, let's say Mamdani runs for president and he becomes president, and then he has the ability to force everybody to become Muslim, then we all become Muslim because he's the king, and the king can kill you in their time frame. Thankfully, we don't live in those time frames, because I would surely be dead or exiled. But yeah, so those stories are passed down from empire to empire, which is why we see these stories in the Hebrew context, in the Hebrew versions, coming from the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks, all that. These stories come from those people because they consistently and continuously modify these stories as they have been conquered by other people. Especially after they were conquered by it already had Egyptian motifs, but then when they got conquered by the Assyrians, it started taking on more of the Akkadian, Sumerian, Assyrian motif, and then the Babylonian. Huge influence by the Zoroastrians and the Greeks, especially by the time we get to 1st century with the Jesus character. The Jesus character is living in a time frame when Judaism has been Hellenized like a champ. The ideas of heavens and hells, and which they made into Abaddon and Abraham's bosom, a supremely good God, a supremely bad God, picked up from their time frame under the Persians with the Zoroastrian, believing in Ahura Mazda and Agramenia. So they picked up these motifs because when we look at some of these older books in the Old Testament, it is very much more of a Canaanite, Sumerian type deities, where there are multiple deities having multiple powers. The chief god gives out land. In the Israelites' idea, they give them a people because they didn't have a land yet. But then as the story develops under Hezekiah, now all of a sudden the people are given a promised land, which doesn't match up to the Noah story, because according to the Noah story, the children of Shem were to inherit lands further to the east, not on the coastal. Nowhere near, no lands near on the coast of the Mediterranean were supposed to be given to Shem's children. They go out towards the Euphrates and all the way down to the Persian Gulf. But then they had to start changing that story up in order to fit the lands that they were controlling at that time frame. But they didn't fix the story. They should have fixed the story of Shem's children's inheritance in order to make it valid. They should not have given Canaan the land of the Levant. They should have changed that and put Canaan in Africa with the rest of his brothers. And then that way they could have said that Shem, that he gets Canaan, that land, and therefore it would fit their story. But for some stupid ass reason, for whatever reason, it could have been political, could have been too much of a change. The people of Hezekiah's time and Josiah's time, they wouldn't accept that. They didn't make that change. But now you got to also think the arrogance of these people. They lived in a time frame, and that time frame is not that far away when it was still happening. If the king or the queen said something, you just accepted it. And you went along with it because they can kill you. Because you're right. See, I can't call you by your name because I don't know what language that is. And you still haven't told me what language your name is written in. I'm going to say Thai or Balinese. Could be Indian. Could be an old Indian script as well. But anyway, yes, them living alongside the other Mesopotamian people, they're going to pick up these different Mesopotamian stories and make them into their own stories. Because, I mean, people look at our movies today. Nobody's really that original. Most movies are the same. And yeah, we still keep going. Like, me and my wife have a date this Friday to go see Mortal Kombat. And then I'm going to go see Mandalorian and Goku at the end of the month. And of course, go see Spider-Man. And then Doomsday. Cambodian. You think his name is? Yeah, it could be Cambodian. That's why I was saying Southwest Asia. It's definitely Southwest Asian language. But I can see Cambodian. And you're right. Indigenous people all over the world have used one another's stories or aspects of those stories. This is why, like, the Mayan and the Aztec stories are very similar. Mayan, Aztecs, and the Peruvian stories, very similar. Now, because these were people who had contact with one another. And so they're going to exchange stories. They're going to exchange motifs, which is why when little fella was saying that he lives by the Torah, why would you live by something that you know and you can readily study and understand has been influenced by other cultures who are outside of the will of your God? Like many of the things that you see in the laws of the Torah in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, they are similar to the Akkadian laws. They are similar to Hammurabi's laws. So you're pretty much seeing how these laws are similar to laws that preceded them. They're similar to the Confessions of Ma'at, something that they would have been aware of being under Egyptian rule. You see the similarities, but yet you stay with it. You stay with it. You can see, you know, a damn flood ain't never happened. Localized floods happen, but no flood ever happened. Yeah, no damn. It's never been a worldwide flood. Come on. If, you know, that's the part where Osara said that, Ariza said that people use facts as you think. And then the other gentleman, Warrior, said that as you become an adult, you start to analyze things and use facts. But people don't do that at all. Every Christian knows good and damn well the flood never happened. But yet, these jokers still believe that a flood happened, a worldwide flood happened. All evidence points to a worldwide flood never happening. But yet they keep believing it. That's just stupid. That's nonsense. What my man say in Vampire in Brooklyn? That's plaids and stripes. That don't go together. That don't make no sense. But evil is good. Yes, I know many people, that movie got, a lot of people don't like that movie, but I love Vampire in Brooklyn. It's a great movie. Yes, and they do have religious Stockholm syndrome. Definitely that. Oh yeah, I haven't looked up and see what's going on with Ebo Noah. I need to look up what happened with Igbo Noah, because he was saying I'm building boats. He made some money off of it. I know that part. I know he made some money. I know Igbo Noah made some money off that bullshit. because I did a video about him making some money. Went and bought him a nice Mercedes and everything. You know, I wish Atlantis, I would love for them to find Atlantis. I want Atlantis to be real while you playing. Oh, he got he got a Benz. Ebo Noah made some money. Start doing appearances and stuff, showing up in his sackcloth. I need to make a world-ending prediction. Get some people to jump behind that. My guy, Bible leaves the mind control. How you doing?
How you doing, Coach? You can't complain. I can't complain.
Good.
I was just thinking with the logics of it reminds me of a debate I had with what you were saying with the Noah thing, right? I forgot how me and my guy started talking about it, but we was talking about faith. When I say my guy, I mean my friend. Please, I'm not whatever. But yeah, so my friend, he was saying about faith, and I was like, okay, I got a bigger point. I said, all right, after the flood happened, they had more than faith. They had firsthand account and everything. So the other people of different religions, all of them was wiped out. I said, all right. So if they have first account of seeing their God do everything, who was the first person to create a different religion and why? When they didn't have to have faith. They had firsthand witness, firsthand account. Who was the first person in their family to be like, oh, well, let's just worship another type of God? Huh? How did that even come about if all the other religions were wiped out and your family had firsthand witness and completely was telling you about, experiencing about what happened? Who would dare to defy to think of another worship another God?
Well, see, let me tell you how it happened. You see, the son Mizraim, right?
Mm-hmm.
See, Mizraim, he moved down to Egypt, down the Nile, and then while he was living there, a couple generations go by. After the Tower of Babel and stuff, and the Nile River kept flooding, and then it receded back, and then it flooded again, and every year kept doing it. So he decided, generations later, one of his children said that, you know what, I think that there is a God at the mouth of the Nile, since we can't find where it begins. And that God, and there's a God there, and he keep flooding the Nile River, and we should build a temple to him. Yeah, that's how it happened. Same thing happened with Japheth's children when they went up to Europe. They needed some rain. It wasn't coming, and so one of them said, "You know what? I'm gonna pray to another guy. I think Thor needs to bring some rain."
But how do they even?
It's bullshit, though, really.
Yeah, I'm trying to say, how do they even know about these other gods if everything got wiped out? Like, who explains it to them? How do they analyze it? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
they would literally have to just make it up.
Right. They that's what I'm saying. They would literally have to make it up or see something of another thing, but they wouldn't understand it because there's no one to explain it to them. And then if you think about it, why would they make up any other god? It's not like we reading a book and then we have to use our imagination. They literally witnessed the whole earth get flooded. They literally, you know what I'm saying? So there's no doubt in their mind that their God exists. Who the hell would even go against that and think of, you know what, let me try to worship another God? Your great grandma, didn't she just tell you that they just came off the boat and so forth like that? You know what I'm trying to say? Like it would be forbidden for you to even think like that. Think of another God, because your whole family, your whole thing, that would be your whole existence will always be on that story. Yeah, exactly. We just came off a boat.
And even their flood stories wouldn't even change as much as they did, because like when you look at the story from the Hindu perspective, you got Manu being saved with his family and a few other people. So where's these other people? Why are you adding people to the story? You know what I'm saying? They're like changing the story up. No, you would still have that same story. It would
They're
still be
all-
Noah. It wouldn't be Manu, it'd be Noah. It'd still be Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's obviously they already had their own stories based on localized floods that they experienced and wrote that into their narratives.
Okay. And
But
the same
definitely-
thing.
Go ahead.
I think with the what's that story? With the with Kemet, with ancient Kemet, the ancient Kemites. I think the whole point of creating like a godlike thing is because that's the way that they was trying to explain cosmology and astrology. Like that was the easiest way to explain it. I think it really is all knowledge, if you will. But to explain it, we used like godlike figures, and that's the whole point. And it's a true knowledge behind it that no one really understands.
Yeah, I do agree that somebody, and since we're using the people of Kim, that yeah, they were like, hey, I can make the sun go up and down, and it's a god that's moving the sun around, and at night he's fighting a battle against Apophis, and Apophis grows stronger every day. Every time this happens, so Ra, we got to worship Ra to give him the strength to fight this battle for us. And he was able to part some fools with their money. And it also showed the government that I can control the people a lot easier if I got them all believing that Ra is the primary god and I am a son of Ra, I'm the embodiment of Ra. So political power would have saw that as an opportunity, to take over, and no one could dispute it because they didn't have the scientific evidence to dispute it at that time frame. Have you ever noticed that every time there's a religious belief, as soon as science disproves it, they shift the belief to something else?
And
then
give
science
me two
disproves
more
that.
examples of that, Coach. Give me two more examples of that. I want to use that, and give me two more if you can.
Well, so like with the Canaanite people and the Israelite people, Yahweh was the god of the horrific rains, storms. Baal was the god of the fertility storms. So if they wanted to have a good crop, they would pray to Baal. During the time frame of Josiah, they was like, you know what, we be praying to Baal, but then Yahweh storms be devastating us, or he be giving us droughts. So we're gonna switch over and pray to Yahweh only. So that was the motif. But then as we learned about weather patterns, now Yahweh, Baal can't be weather gods. They have to be these ethereal gods who just, they control everything in the universe, not just the storm. Because we know storms are happening naturally, and God put that storm process into place. So you can use that. You could also use the Greek mythology of the gods living on top of Mount Olympus, because back in the day, nobody could scale that mountain, so the gods lived there. Once somebody was able to scale Mount Olympus, all of a sudden they start teaching that the gods, they live on top of Mount Olympus, but they live in a different astral plane. So you can climb it, but you won't see them.
Right. Okay. Move the goalpost every time you defeat the goalpost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they just keep. That's how it works. Now, I saw this question on my Facebook, and I thought it was a very good question. And it said 10 things that science teaches that have been debunked by religion. And it just listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and nothing next to it. So basically, there is absolutely nothing that science has said that religion disproves.
Yeah, that's common knowledge.
And I tried to play devil's advocate. I tried to sit there and think, okay, what has religions? What's something that goes against science that religion says, and which one is right? And I couldn't think of nothing that religion was right about. that debunk science.
That's true. And I said I mean I gotta look it up. I remember you said that, and the only thing that came to my mind is I said one time I looked at the news and it was talking about people that receive prayer in circumstances, they had more chances of surviving than people that don't receive prayer.
Oh no, that's reverse.
I remember you said that.
No, I didn't say it like that.
No, I remember you said it in reverse. I remember when
Oh
I
yeah.
told you that's exactly what you said to me. You said, "Oh no, you have proof that it's the reverse," and I was like, "Oh well, okay. One time we'll talk about it."
Yeah, that I forgot who did that study. So in my brain is saying John Hopkins, but I'm probably wrong. But there, yeah, that study. If when they find out somebody praying for them, all of a sudden they do worse.
That's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I can understand the psychological profile because when people are praying for you, usually people pray for people in dire situations, and it's kind of negative energy. If you think about it, if you go back to your you used to be a Christian, right?
correct.
If you go back to your Christian days and think about most of the prayers, they could be saying words that seem uplifting, but the energy is always negative, and then they always mess up the positive word. But God, if it is your will that I should die, that my daddy should not survive this cancer, then I
Right.
know that he is coming to be in the kingdom with you. I'm like, you just fucked up the whole prayer. You just gave an opt out for the prayer.
Yeah. That's to make sure that we cover both grounds. Like you don't feel hurt no matter what happens.
Exactly. I've only seen one person, and that is only, and I think it's only because of the many conversations that her and I used to have, because she knew my stance, but she knew I was going to church because the woman I was married to at the time, she was Christian.
Okay.
But she knew my stance. She understood my stance. And I used to tell her all the time about how they be in there praying and then they mess it all up. So when her husband was attacked by an immunovirus, she would not let anyone come into that hospital room who did not think that he would survive. Even the doctors. She told the doctors, if you don't have in your mindset that you're going to cure my husband, you can't work on my husband.
I remember you said that too. Right?
That's the only person I've ever seen. And so she was mixing in some of the things that me and her talked about. And yes, I'm going to take that credit. That's the only person. Every other Christian I know of, they pray a defeated prayer. So they have already decided that, oh shit, I'm going to lose.
Right. And that's based on that. That's why I came up with my plan. I was like, I want them all to see with this world peace thing that whole shebangs that y'all talking about, no matter who y'all believe, you praying to a stone warrior or whoever you think it is, we all going to pray for it, and let's see what happens.
Yeah,
and I get what you're saying by adding world leaders to agree, and I think that's kind of easier said than thought of. Like I had an overnight to think about it, and I was well, I mean, it's kind of easier once I get a major influence to bring it to like each governor to think about it, and the governor, will work his way up.
That'd be cool if you can get it done.
Yeah.
I know you. Let me switch my energy. You can do it. Do it. I can see it.
I could see it trying to.
You just got to get people behind. Just the more you talk about it, I think if you talk about it, keep it where it's inclusive, you'll get people to you can get people to join in.
Correct. I just can't wait for them to see the excuses afterwards. Like after a girl, the way I want to do it is I want to have a data number, like for like the people that's joining in to do it. I want you to select like your religion, or who whoever type. If my list isn't there, type in your religion or type in your God that you're praying to, So I
Right.
want to have like a data thing, so we could say, oh, like 300,000 thing, so we could say, oh, like 300,000 Jews did it, 200,000 Christians did it, like, you know what I'm saying. So I want to have a complete data involved to say,
Oh,
look, this is this is how much of different religions that we had participate, and out of all of them, those gods, none of them, not one was able to do the world peace.
so create a petition website where people can sign in and have that as one of the things that they have to fill out.
Okay, right. What religion are you, or what denomination? What God are you praying to, or
Yeah.
what are you praying to?
Yeah, that way you'll be able to track that and have numbers on it by
Right.
having people fill that out. And as long as you get a large enough sample size, you can spread that for the whole everybody.
Right.
Yeah, get on it, man.
Will do. All right, Coach. Good
All right,
talking to you.
appreciate you.
Same.
Thanks. Somebody said something over here on TikTok about the Jaguar. I would really like to know more about that. You saying that the blood of the Jaguar is Balaam? That's something I've never heard. I don't know as much about Mesoamerican history and religion. I just know a little bit. So if you don't mind explaining that, what do you mean by the Jaguar? Mike right here. That the Jaguar is Balaam. How do you do that? How do you bring those two together? You've piqued my interest. We have a Second Amendment obligation to remove Trump from our nation. Sic semper tyrannis. Isn't that what old dude said when he shot Lincoln in the back of the head? But you're absolutely right. If there is a leader that is ignoring the Constitution, we have a civic duty to remove that person from that office. And it's going to take more than just voting, to be honest. There literally has to be a civil rights like movement, a 60s anti-Vietnam like movement to cause the Congress and the Senate to do so. You got too many sycophants in Congress and Senate right now to be able to do it, unless the people are saying that we'll get your ass out of office if you don't get this done. So if you wanted to get that done, Cyril, that's how you're gonna have to get it done. You got to create a movement big enough. And you already got some people connect with the No Kings people. That'll be a good start. They're kind of in that mode, but they got to push harder than what they're pushing. They got to push a lot harder. I just sent the invite by accident to somebody. I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to scroll on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok and you see the invite thing, that was accidental. How come you don't believe what happened to Moses? Because all the archaeological evidence about Moses points to Moses never existing. So if we utilize the two different timelines of the Bible, you would either have to say Moses was existing in around the 15 to 1400s BCE, more of the 1400s BCE, or around the 1200 BCE time frame. Well, problem is the Levant was controlled by Egypt during the 1500s through the 1200s BCE. So in order for Moses to leave now region Egypt and go to the promised land, he would have been going to a land that was still being controlled by Egypt, therefore not leaving Egypt. Joshua would not have been able to conquest all those cities because those would have been Egyptian controlled cities. And the cities and people that they destroyed in and around the Sinai Peninsula, they would not have been able to destroy those people because that would have been an area that was also controlled by Egypt. So the whole Exodus story cannot have happened. Now, also, we have evidence that the pyramids and other structures in Egypt were built by skilled laborers who were paid. This is claiming they were slaves, Semite slaves who had did this, Israelite slaves. But the Egyptian records show that it wasn't Israelite slaves. The Egyptian records don't even show that they had such a large number of Israelite slaves during that time frame. Also, if the 10 plagues of Egypt had happened, that would have crushed the Mediterranean economy. Like the effects of that would have crushed the entire Mediterranean, kind of like if the American dollar plummets, it affects the world markets. It would affect the Mediterranean markets in the same way, since Egypt was a huge trading partner with the Mediterranean world at that time frame. But what we see in the Egyptian culture during that, which I believe is the 18th dynasty, we see that those kingdoms flourished during the 18th dynasty. On TikTok, I'm Deconstructing Christianity is the name, Deconstructing Christianity on TikTok. But it would have flourished during that time frame. I mean, they were flourishing during the time frame that the so-called plagues had happened. And you can imagine if all the firstborns would have died and all the cattle dies. The Nile River turns to blood, which is the lifeblood of all of Egypt. And so that would mean that every animal organism almost every animal and organism in there would have died. Their crops were all destroyed. And these were agrarian people. That would have produced famine all throughout the Mediterranean if Egypt had experienced all of that. Egypt shows no sign of that. The Mediterranean world shows no signs of that at all. So Moses never happened. And then we see the stories of Sargon, where he was put into a boat, floated down the Euphrates River. The baker of the king found him, raised him up to be his own son. He became a member of the king's court. He showed that he was a great leader, became second in command, and then eventually he becomes in command. So we see elements of the Sargon story, which was told a couple thousand years earlier, well, about 1,500 years earlier, is the first oldest version of that story. But the story must had to be around longer when the Akkadians were in control of that region. But we see that story being told long before Moses. So yeah, Moses never happened. There's no evidence of Moses. There's no evidence of a whole bunch of Jews or Israelites in Goshen. You know, it just doesn't. It doesn't happen. Can't happen. So that's why I don't accept Moses. That's why I don't accept the Exodus, and that's why I don't accept Joshua's conquest. Right? None of those things could have happened. And Joseph in Egypt. None of that. None of that. Not so much, Jimmy. Right? It was finally kind of codified under Babylonian captivity. The stories were oral traditions, and they started being written down during the time frame of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah and Josiah, that's when they started being written down, and where they were written down and they were kind of like being edited and formalized. But that whole process continued until Babylonian captivity. And really it's on the Persian captivity that they actually kind of finalized the story. But it started being written, a few centuries before then. That's why you got Josiah and Hezekiah doing their reformations of the Old Testament, of the Torah, during their time frame. And since we know those two people most likely existed, it's acceptable that Josiah and Hezekiah were doing all that stuff. Now, the Hyksos would have been about 150 years before Noah. You would have had the Hyksos. The Hyksos are in like 1600 BCE. So that's at minimum about 150 years before the Noah story. And we have the Egyptian records that show that when the Egyptians ran the Hyksos out, but they ran them out through battle. There was no Exodus. Now, there is a story of a Moses character who went up to Goshen, and there was a bunch of lepers, and he led those lepers out of the Goshen area. So there's elements from that story as well. And I think his name originally was like the Moses, and then he changed it to Moses, but he led a bunch of lepers out. Do you have this written where we can access it? No, I don't. I just study it nowadays because it's a lot easier to use the internet. When I first started studying these things, Margaret, it was going to libraries and going to museums, talking to archaeologists and things of that nature. So I'm going way back to the 90s. But especially with these AIs, if you ask a qualified question, you'll get a better answer. So if you ask the question based on archaeology and other historical elements, did Moses exist? That should get you started. And if you're using an AI, you can always ask a secondary and a third and a fourth and a fifth question to the statements. But those questions need to be quality questions, not biased questions. You know, if you just ask it, tell me about Moses, or did Moses exist? Because if you just ask Google, did Moses exist? You're going to get a lot of information based on people from and I'll explain why. But you'll get a lot of information based on answers in Genesis and things of that nature, because what a lot of Christian organizations have done to influence Google, they have overloaded it with a bunch of essays and statements and podcasts and Reddits, so that the information that comes back to you is based on what they wrote. But if you go to Google Scholar, you can get PhD's papers on it. And you're going to get both sides of the argument in the PhD papers. But utilizing an AI, most AIs are doing very good sweeps of more than just the internet. Home Slice. I like that name.
Thanks, man.
How you doing, Home Slice?
Hey, so my comment on the Torah, the Bible, it's well, okay. I was going to comment on the Torah and the Tanakh. In the Torah, we see this sort of primitive concept of God, like in Genesis. He's almost geriatric. He doesn't even know where they're at half the time. They're like, we're over here. Then it's obviously a myth. There's a talking snake. There's a magical garden. This is mythical language. But then in Isaiah, for example, it gets a little bit more accurate. He stretches out the heavens like a curtain. And the point, what I see in the Bible is primitive man has this concept of God, but it gets more and more accurate. And then we get to Jesus, and Jesus is the master mystic, and his teachings are very profound, and he shows us who God is. And none of the Bible's perfect, but that doesn't mean we discard it or say that it's worthless.
Well, I would disagree on now I agree with you on that. It started out as primitive, and then it gets a little bit better. And I think it gets better because their scientific knowledge increases, and that's what makes it better. More, attuned to how we are thinking today. But the Jesus message is the reason why we can throw it away is because it's still based in first century Greco-Roman mentalities, and which doesn't bode well for how our true worldview is today. People try to add the Jesus teachings to our current worldview, but some of them run indifferent to those. Okay, Home Slice, are you a racist? Oh shit, he left. I don't know why he left. He might have got cut off. If you got cut off, come back. I wasn't looking to see. But I'm gonna say Home Slice is not a racist. I wanted to ask him if he was a Gen Xer, because that's a term from back in my day. But Jesus obviously shows signs of ethnocentrism when he calls the Canaanite woman a dog, basically in our world today, calling her a bitch. And it's only when she accepts her lower tier existence that the character Jesus then says, okay, now I'll heal you. So it's like the oppressed person saying that, okay, I recognize that I'm oppressed, but Mr. Walter, if you just let me mow your grass, I sure appreciate it, because then I can feed my family. Yes, I know, Mr. Walters. I see your 7-year-old son, and I'm gonna call him sir, and he can call me boy, and I'll accept that. That's the Canaanite woman accepting her place in society. And Jesus saying, now that you accept your place in society, I will now heal you. I'll do for you. So Jesus' message is still outdated, right? When Jesus said love your neighbor, he just meant love your fellow Israelites. People take that today to mean everybody. Jesus' message is outdated. So now we can throw Jesus away because we have more modern philosophies that don't have the negative connotations of the past. So yeah, I throw the whole damn thing away, because I can find do unto others that you have them do unto yourself in other philosophies that are more modernized, right? How about the Epic of Gilgamesh? Yep, a lot of the these Bible stories are reminiscent of the Epic of Gilgamesh. I think they borrowed heavily from them. Artificial intelligence exhibits biases. That's why you have to be you have to look at which artificial intelligence you use, but at the same time, it still comes down to the quality of the question. Like, I could use ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. Well, I don't use Claude. I use ChatGPT, Gemini. I can't think of the other one that I use. But and the Google AI, I don't know if that's Gemini as well, but I always get an unbiased answer, right? It'll tell me what the secular ideas, the critical science, the critical scholarship ideas, and it also tell me what the apologetic idea is. And I think mainly it's because the way I style my questions. So, like if I want to know when something is written, like the video I did today on the Gospel of Barnabas, I asked multiple questions, but one of the questions that I asked was, what is the critical scholarship on the dating for the Gospel of Barnabas? Specifically towards, and then I said, oh yeah. And I said specifically towards I asked that question. And then I asked, what is the relationship between the Gospel of Barnabas as mentioned by the Pope and the booklet in the museum in Ankara, Turkey? And so then it broke down how the Gospel of Barnabas was merely mentioned by a Pope in his statements in the 4th century. I can't remember the Pope's name. Galicaeus, something like that. Galicaeus. But it's mentioned how Galicaeus said that these books we won't have, and the Gospel of Barnabas was one of the books. But there's never been any quote from that book or inscription that we've ever found. And then it explained how the Gospel of Barnabas was considered a forgery and written in around the 14th century, either in Italy or in Spain. And it gave a breakdown of why Italy and a breakdown of why Spain. And then this most likely by a Christian convert to Islam. I had my own theories as to why it was written, so I expressed that in the video that I made today that y'all should go look at after this. But yeah, so even with an AI, and I know they are programmed to function a certain way, how you ask the questions makes the difference. You can overcome bias based on your questions. So, as you guys do your research, think about the way you ask your questions, and think about your secondary questions, your third questions, your fourth questions. Think about all the levels that you're going to go down that rabbit hole. Because otherwise, yeah, you're going to get some bias shit. If you just ask a straight up question, did Moses exist? you're probably going to get a bunch of shit from Answers in Genesis, from this church or that church, this church of research, that church of research, and they're all going to point favorably towards Moses' existence. But when you ask it about the oftentimes I'll say, what is the non-apologetic critical scholarship on the existence of Moses in comparison to the archaeological evidence in Egypt? It can't be biased at this point, right? It has to give me the information based on the parameters that I just in place, which I don't want to hear apologetics. I want to know what the archaeology is saying, what the history is saying, what people have written in their PhD's papers. And even when I read a PhD paper, I'm looking at, okay, if this person wrote this PhD paper, what school is he writing it for? There's a difference between getting your PhD at Dallas Seminary and getting your PhD at Oxford Seminary. Because Oxford Seminary is a biblical studies course, or Yale is a biblical studies course. Cambridge is a biblical study course. Harvard is a biblical study course. But Dallas Seminary is a Baptist seminary school. And so every PhD paper there has to affirm Moses' existence. It has to. Matter of fact, when I was offered the scholarship, and it wasn't being offered by the school, it was being offered by the church that the church organization that I belonged to at the time. What made me reject the scholarship was the fact that in doing the application for Dallas Seminary, I had to sign an agreement that said that whatever I learned there, I would still have to support the Bible. And I was like, nah, you set me up for failure. I would have failed. I would have never got my PhD from Dallas Seminary. They would have rejected that PhD. I probably wouldn't even got past the master's. They'd been like, nah. Even in writing my master's documentation, they'd been like, nah, you not passing. We ain't giving you a master's from here. We ain't giving you a doctorate from here. No. You think for yourself. We can't have none of that bullshit. Thinking for yourself. What kind of nonsense is that? How dare you? Oh, we getting long in the tooth on the time, ain't we? Yeah. We got time for a few more questions, statements, or even people coming on the live. Because as much as I love y'all and appreciate y'all, when my wife get home, y'all, I'm done with y'all. Let's see. Trini? I don't know if Trini did that by accident. I think I said her name right. It's Trini. Trini? Must have been by accident. Yep. That is how it is, Jim. I mean, the seminary got to protect itself. You can't walk away from Dallas Seminary with a PhD and then you're on social media talking about, yeah, let me tell you about the bullshit that they taught us. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about that. What Margaret said, don't stop. Oh, can't be mad about that. No, you can't be mad about that. I love y'all, but I love my wife way more than I love y'all. Miss Keita said, who is Melchizedek and is he supposed to be God? No, Melchizedek is not supposed to be God. There's not actually a lot of information on Melchizedek. Melchizedek, even though they say he does not have a mother or a father, it's somewhat evident in so let me tell you what most critical scholars think. Most critical scholars think that Melchizedek was the son of the king of Sodom, who was ruling over Jebus, which is modern day Jerusalem. And when he saw that Abraham had conquered and killed his father in Sodom, he came up offering kind of peace to Abraham. And in doing so, Abraham gave Melchizedek all of what he had conquered from Sodom, from the king of Sodom. So basically giving Melchizedek his inheritance from his father, who was the king of Sodom. There's not hard-coded information on that one. This is just what the thing based on the information that's given. Now, Melchizedek, when they say he worshiped the God of the Most High, that just means he worshiped El, because at the time, it's okay. So at the time of Abraham, Jebus was controlled by Canaanites. Canaanites worship, their biggest god in the Canaanites was El. El, who later becomes merged with Yahweh, the God that Abraham is worshiping, would still be seen as the Most High. And with Abraham coming out of the city of Ur, he would have known who El is and would have understood his place, but he worshiped Yahweh instead of El. So El's daddy, Yahweh's daddy El, would still seem to, in Abraham's mind, we are still worshiping the same line of gods. We're still in the same line. So it would make sense for him to recognize Melchizedek as a priest of El. So when they say that Jesus is in the line of the order of Melchizedek, it is 2,000 years later, the merging of Yahweh and El into one deity. And with Melchizedek being a worshiper of El, Jesus still in that same line. So Melchizedek wouldn't have been God, but he would have been looked at as a high priest of God, which Jesus is compared to in 1st century CE, based on the thought process of 1st century, not the thought process of 25th millennial. Well, not 25th. Yeah, 250,000, 2,500 years, 2,600, 700 years prior. Well, no, Abraham would have been about 2,000. See, if that was 2,500, Abraham would have been around 2,200, 2,300, somewhere around in there, BCE. So it's the misinterpretation of as if the Bible is speaking in univocality. Melchizedek wasn't worshiping the same God as Abraham, but a different God. But by the time Jesus comes around, those guys are merged into one God. So it'll make sense to 1st century people. But that's all who Melchizedek most likely was. He was just the king of Salem, king of the city of Jebus, which becomes Jerusalem. And most likely the king of Sodom was his actual father. But he wasn't nobody special. We just don't have much information about him. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to hit that. But yeah, I can hit this one. I agree with you, Jim. And it's common sense. I mean, American laws are picked up from British laws, maritime laws, things that were common to the people at that time. And as this country has developed, those laws has changed based on the customs. And other countries have adopted laws because of laws that America has. And America has adopted laws from other countries, which we should be looking at other countries' healthcare system and saying, like, that's a good ass system over there. We might need to do that. Y'all gonna have to pay more taxes, though. I don't pay taxes, but y'all might have to pay more taxes. Let's see. But what about the feast and festival days? Do you know of any other nations or religions whose holidays line up with those in the Torah? Even more than any that align using the same reckoning of time being the moon and month cycles. So you have like Saturnalia. So like almost everybody has a feast or festival that centers around the winter solstice, the summer solstice, the spring equinox, and the fall equinox. The Hebrew calendar have festival days on all those 4 moments in a year as well. So, but that was a common practice all over the world where people recognize those time frames to have feasts and festivals. Now, you're going to have some other feasts and festivals that are going to be based on events that happen within each individual culture. So those are not going to line up. But all the ones that are astrological, those are found all over the world. What do they mean when they say that he was fully formed and could speak at birth? Melchizedek? I've never heard that Melchizedek was fully formed and could speak at birth. I know in the book of Enoch. No, maybe that's in the book of Enoch. I know Enoch talks about. No, he wasn't fully formed. He just could see. I don't know. I've never really heard that one. It just sounds like some bullshit to make him bigger. Make him like bigger than humans. So to my understanding, the Torah is the entirety of the Old Testament. The first 5 books are called the Pentateuch. But most of the time when people refer to the Torah, they're just talking about the first 5 books, which is the Pentateuch. They don't have summer and winter feasts. Who don't? Can't say they. You got to put some who in that. Because we can see that the Druids had summer and winter feasts. The Romans had summer and winter feasts. Many Mesoamerican cultures had summer and winter feasts. I don't know what you're talking about. Rich.
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for your service, man.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, let me get you on the big camera.
All right, this is my first time. I've been following you for a minute, but this is my first time actually joining in.
Oh, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And it's kind of crazy that people still believe that beliefs are actual truths,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't really want to realize that most religions are culturally based.
Right.
That's why when you had the younger man that was from Nigeria earlier,
Yeah.
sorry, I had to cut off and go eat dinner and come back. But when he was saying, "Oh, I wasn't there," well, of course, nobody today was anywhere with any religion.
No.
And I actually wrote something earlier stating that the 3 Abrahamic religions, if they truly believe that Abraham is the father and that he came from Ur, so he already was introduced to a cultural belief then. That's why a lot of the Torah have similar themes
Right.
to ancient Babylonia and the Syrians and the Mesopotamians and all that. So,
No, I agree 100% with that because, I mean, when you look at the Table of Nations, and the Table of Nations, it sends the children of Shem into Mesopotamia. So it would make sense that Abraham would come out of that area. But ironically enough, like the Bible equals mind control was saying, Abraham is pulled away from these Chaldean beliefs, which were beliefs in what we would say is the Sumerian gods.
correct.
To go into this Canaanite land, which the Canaanites, because of being conquested under the Akkadians, would have had similar beliefs, where they had similar beliefs to the Akkadians and Sumerians as well. And so it wasn't too different for him, but he just made his own subtle changes. based on his belief in Yahweh being the primary deity to worship
Right,
over
right.
El or Baal or Mot, you know. And so he had those cultural influences. Yeah, I agree
Total,
with you.
total.
100%.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it's still funny today, how people say, "Oh, but only these religions, quote unquote, have survived so long." Well, the oldest religions today is not even one of those three. So,
Exactly. Hinduism, Buddhism, both are older than the Abrahamic religions. Yet they want to make it seem like longevity means truth, right? I never looked up how long the Greek religions lasted, but I'm pretty sure they lasted for a long ass time. That doesn't
mhm.
make them true. Um, I'm how long?
And you got to remember, Greek mythology and Roman mythology were very similar as well. Just names changed, really.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Greek religion lasted for over 1,000 years, right? Um, yeah, it lasted for well over 1,000 years, and actually, some think that it started around 3,000 BCE. Some think it started lasted even longer than that. Hell, look at how long the Egyptian religion lasts. We can know that without looking it up. That the Egyptian religion, although there were many changes within the religion, just like all religions have their changes over the centuries, but we know the Egyptian civilization started at a minimum of 3100 BCE, and we know that religion lasted all the way until they were conquered by the Greeks, and well, even
And
while they were conquered by the Greeks.
and also, when you was talking about the changes within the religion, the Egyptians actually went from polytheistic to monotheistic and back to polytheistic.
Mm-hmm. They sure did,
So,
and that religion lasted for at least 3,000 years. So Christianity ain't even got there yet.
no, it's
It's
still
only been
big.
around for 2,000. You still got another 1,000 years before you eclipse the time of the Egyptian religion.
It's
So
true.
longevity does not mean truth. I'll make a video about that.
That's a good one.
I'll make a video about that. I'm gonna do some research on other religions and the time frames that they lasted. And yes, I'm gonna take the Greek religion and add in the time frame of the Roman religion as well, because that is pretty much the same damn thing.
Exactly.
And you know what else I'm gonna throw in there? I'm gonna throw in there the fact that if Yahweh is the true God, then why is every day of the week named after a different God?
Because of the root.
Exactly. Now, in Hebrew, they do have different names, but Christianity follows the Greco-Roman naming of these different days. With what Tuesday is Mercury, Wednesday is Woden, Thursday is Thor, Friday is Frigga, Saturday is Saturn from the
Saturn.
Babylonians. And
That's
that's
right.
from the Babylonians. Well, you can say it's originally from the Babylonians, and the Romans and the Greeks already had it as well. And so it just like, okay, we already doing that with Saturn on Saturday. And then Sunday is the day for the sun, which is a whole bunch of people, but we can probably pinpoint it and say Ra for the sun. And then Monday is the moon day, which could either be the Babylonian god Sin, or who else had it? Well, they all have, the Romans and the Greeks have a moon god as well. So all these days are named after some other deity.
But you got to remember also, in the past, um, all these beliefs came about, all these religions came about because humanity could not explain nature. And I truly believe that's how it all started. In order for somebody who was looking up to the stars and did not have a way to explain it, it had to be a god to them. So,
Yeah. I mean, if we were still living in that time frame today, we would still be doing that. We see a comet and we would say that, oh, some special person is supposed to be born or some event is supposed to happen, right?
or
Um,
or the coming of the Messiah.
right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But thankfully, we have enough science to know not to do that. We have
I
enough
get,
science to realize what these things really are.
and you know, I'm similar to your boat. I'm from a family of Christians as well, and
Uh-huh.
I'm probably, I think, the only one that's not really a believer any longer. And
Hmm.
it's because I did start reading up on a lot of different things. I started taking the Bible and comparing with other scriptures and seeing the similarities, and but one thing that did help me, and I think it helped you as well, being in the service, is that we traveled the world and we've seen different cultures. When
Yes.
you're stuck in one culture, you're really a little more closed mind than when you are exposed to other cultures. So
Yeah, it does. And then in addition to that, for me, by being exposed to those other cultures, you know, I was one of those guys that I got to another country. Everybody wanted to go to the bars and all that sort of thing. I was seeking out museums and historical areas. And but being able to go to the museum, go to historical areas, meeting the people who are working there, curating there, going to the Vatican, going to, you know, Saudi Arabia and all these places, is like, wait a minute, these people believe in their gods just as much as anybody else. Did I freeze?
yeah, just for a
Yeah, but
minute.
these people believe in their gods just as much as anybody else. They have their claims of authenticity, just like any and everybody else, and they don't think the same way, you know, based on their culture. So if they're thinking like this based on their culture, then back then they had to be thinking a certain way based on their culture, and they wrote it down and called it religion. You know,
That's correct.
so
That
it's
is,
it's a
see,
bunch of.
it's like me. I've been to the Sinai. I actually climbed the Mount Sinai.
Mhm.
Went down into St. Catherine's Monastery, seen the proposed burning bush that is still there, saw the oldest Bible that they have in the geographical area, supposedly there as well. Went to the pyramids of Giza. So I did the same thing you did, and tried to soak everything about the cultures just to grow,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, and that's why travel is the greatest thing.
If you
Traveling,
do it right.
if you do it right. If it's not all just fun in the sun,
That's right.
you know, actually learn something, participate in some events, see different things. Um, you know, I know it became a big thing for people a few years ago, but the first time I was in Spain and that celebration that they had them little Ku Klux Klan looking hats on. Of course, I was like, oh hell no. But then, you know, this later on, this Spanish guy, I asked, I was like, man, what's with the Ku Klux Klan hat? And he was like, what the hell is the Ku Klux Klan? And then he explained to me how they're wearing these hats because it's a sign of humility and all this sort of thing to God and all this. I was like, oh, so that shit was stolen. You know, the
Again,
KKK just
culture.
picked that up from them, but changed the meaning of it through their actions compared to what they were doing it for. I was like, oh, okay, this is different. You know, so I started being more open to understanding why someone does something, not my own perspective of what's going on. Because
Right.
an American perspective will leave you dumb as shit.
And
As you know.
not just an American perspective. I don't want to beat us up, but any other um, country as well. If you don't expand yourself in knowledge with other cultures and understand people, why they act a certain way, where they come from, then the world's just gonna keep dwindling down, a nasty
Yeah,
rabbit hole.
yeah, and we should understand why they do things, you know. And some things will work in another country that may not work here. Like taking all the guns, that ain't gonna work in America.
Nope.
You know, you may go to London, go to England, they don't have guns. Go to Germany, they don't have guns. That ain't gonna work in America. It's just not. It would be great, but it's not gonna work. Um, Shit, when I lived in Germany and my German friends, I was like, wait a minute, about 30 to 40% of your salary goes to the government? They was like, yeah, and they was fine with it. And they were living their lives and all that kind of stuff. I was like, how do y'all survive? But then I looked at all the things that I was paying compared. Well, if I was a civilian, well, once I became a civilian, I looked at all these things that I was paying. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh shit, 30-40% of my money is gone before I even get my check, because I got medical care and I got all medical, dental, vision, all this other stuff. And then I'm looking at the fact that we start out with 2 weeks vacation. They start out with 6 weeks vacation. 34 hours is a full work week, where ours is 40. And they got the when you have a baby and you take time off and you keep the job.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I'd rather go back to Germany.
Again, is you and I were, we were blessed to be able to travel and see, not just culturally, but see the different types of governments, see how the people live. When I was in the Middle East and I saw children running up to the Humvees begging for food, that really hit me hard. I was like, wow. And here I am mad at somebody at the McDonald's line because they're taking long on my order,
Right.
It's really crazy. And
yeah, you also, that's another thing that I did. I always went to the hood, right? When people in America say that they live in poverty or they're poor, I'm like, you don't know poor.
Nope.
I've been to some places where poor, they got real poverty. We got American privileged poverty, which does make you say, let me appreciate what I do have, in comparison, because I know what could be.
True.
Because you're absolutely, when we was down in, we was doing an operation down in Yemen, and to see some of those kids, and they tell us don't give them your MREs or anything like that. I didn't give a shit. I was that little chocolate bar that comes. I was, here you go. I don't know.
How could you not?
Yeah, and I accidentally didn't embark a couple of crates of MREs and left them on the beach. And by the time we got on the boat, that shit was gone. I ain't gonna say it was just me. It was me and another guy. It was me and a couple other guys. We decided that we was gonna leave a couple of crates of MREs because them kids. We went up to that little village to let them know we was gonna be training. And when I saw that little village, I was like, "Damn, this is fucked up." And then we would see the little kids on the outskirts and stuff. So I was like, "Man, I'm not gonna leave these little kids like that. At least they can have some MREs." I wish I could have told them don't eat the cheese. I don't know when you was in.
We had the jalapeno cheese too.
Nah, you can't eat that damn cheese.
Man, that was the good stuff. Those was good days. No, but I just wanted to chime in and appreciate the work you do, and just let everybody know, belief is not truth, and the more you read, the more you study, the truth is going to set you free. That's it.
It sure does. It sure does. I appreciate
So,
you. Thank you for your service. What branch?
Army.
Ain't really Marines yet? Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I know you was there. It's all good, brother.
All right, it's all good. We all the same.
All right, peace.
Peace. Okay, before I go, there was a comment that I wanted to respond to. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, y'all all had some other good comments, but I wanted to respond to this comment of the Torah doesn't have summer or winter festivals. Summer festivals that are held in the Torah, and I'm going to say these names completely wrong, but Shavuot, which is a festival of weeks. This is held in late spring and early summer. They have an autumn and early winter festival, Sukkot, and I don't even want to try to say that one. It happens right after the 7 days of Sukkot happen. And the Sukkot festival is a fall festival for the harvest. They also have that's post-Torah though. But that looks like Hanukkah. But it's spelled differently. Shekhanah, something Chanukkah. And Purim, which is a late winter and early spring during the month of Adar. But yes, they do, even within the Torah, there are summer and autumn/early winter festivals. So yeah, bro, they have. They have. So there you go. It's, I don't know everything, but I sure know how to look up some shit. I can tell you that. Thank you for the gifts, Miss Fifi. I know how to look up some stuff. So be mindful before you make certain statements. You might want to look it up first to be able to state your case. But you got to think, most of the world up until the industrial age was an agrarian society. Agrarian societies always have celebrations during the spring, celebrations during the fall, summer, and winter, because there is based on their agrarian society. They're going to have those. They're going to have a bring in the harvest festival. They're going to have a we made it through the winter festival, or we're going to pray to our God during the winter festival. We're going to have a planting festival during the spring. We're going to I said Hanukkah was post. You don't listen. I said Hanukkah and Purim were post Torah. I said that. I clearly said that part, that those were post. So I said that I'm not going to include them, but I'm mentioning them anyway. And then I went back to the summer festival of Shavuot, and the winter festival of Sukkot, and the winter festival of Shemini. The winter festival of Shemini that happens 7 days after Sukkot, right? Which is a late autumn, early winter festival. And the Shavuot, which is the festival of wheat, occurs in late spring or early summer in the month of Sivan. Right? It marks the end of the barley harvest and the beginning of the wheat harvest. Right? Sukkot is also a harvest festival in early winter, and this Shemini, I'm saying that wrong, is 7 days after, which is them going into the shift into the winter rainy season of Israel. So it's based on weather and harvesting. And if you look at all, and those are festivals based on that you can find that based on based on the Torah. Festival of Weeks. This guy tells you that you are to participate in the Festival of Weeks. And the Passover is always right after the spring equinox. So you always have Passover, and that's Torah, Passover, Torah. So these people back then made holidays out of astrological events and agrarian events. It's a common theme. It's not that big of a deal. So the Israelite customs are not separate from the world. They just give their own different reason for it. They give it a different God to say why they're doing it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It is what it is. I'm not going to sit there and argue when I just looked it up and saw it. I mean, it's right there. It's right there. Oh my gosh. This some people. I'm just not even gonna go into it, especially when they reduce themselves to name calling. See, we were cool earlier, Jim, but then when you got to reduce yourself to name calling, then that's when I kind of got to start ignoring you, because now you don't make any sense to me to have a conversation with, right? And I don't move the goalposts. I stick by what I said. Those festivals happen based on agricultural events. Now, here's the big thing about agricultural events. When you look around the world, if you're on different latitudes and longitude, you're going to have a different agricultural event at different time frames. So having it in the fall, having Sukkot in the fall, and then 7 days later having Shemini, and I'm probably pronouncing that one incorrect. That happened 7 days after, but it's marking the time frame. And Succoth can't be early fall if 7 days later Shemini is happening, which is marking the time frame of switching into the winter. So therefore, you can't do an early fall event and then 7 days later you're commemorating the switch into winter. So Succoth can't be early fall. That wouldn't make any kind of sense now, would it? No, it's called logic. It's called logic. That's all you have to do. Just think through things. All right. So I'm done with him. And then as soon as you start name calling, you just showing your immaturity. So I have to let that go. Now, I want to thank everybody who supports the channel through your gifts. I appreciate that. Everybody who supports the channel by sharing, everybody who supports the channel by sharing videos, subscribing, becoming members, super chat, gifts, all that kind of stuff. I greatly appreciate it. I seen you in DFW. Isn't that Dallas? You didn't see me in Dallas. Unless it was like 2-3 years ago. I was in Dallas, but that was just overnight. Because Dallas Fort Worth, yeah, I rode through Dallas Fort Worth in 2024. Yeah, that was 2024 when we rode through Dallas Fort Worth. You might have saw my twin, but it wasn't me, unless it was in 2024 in March. But see, now you're gonna pique my curiosity. But I gotta go. It's 5 o'clock my time. Yes, I'm still in Texas. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. Dalios, what's up, man? Dalios is a member, so I had to say what's up, man. But I appreciate everybody. Tomorrow, what do I have on task for tomorrow? What's tomorrow? Today's Wednesday. There might be a live, may not be a live. I'm not sure. I think I have some appointments tomorrow during most of the day. I know I'm talking to a lawyer about a tax lien property tomorrow. I don't know about tomorrow yet. So we'll see if I'm live tomorrow. If I am, I am. If I'm not, I'm not. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, I don't know how long that tax lien conversation is gonna. Well, I'm in Texas, so it's a tax deed conversation is gonna happen. How long that's gonna last tomorrow. But if it's short, then I will go live tomorrow. If it's not short, then I won't be live tomorrow. So y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. And I will see y'all tomorrow or Friday. One of the two, I should be able to do it live.